Okay, we'll go ahead and call this meeting of April 20th, 2015 to order. And if you would, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of Michigan and to the state for which it stands, two beautiful peninsulas united by a bridge of steel, where equal opportunity and justice to all is our ideal.
Sandy, could we have the roll call, please?
Councilmember Malama.
Here.
Shippers.
Here.
Spolman.
Here.
Stevens.
Here.
Mayor Filkins.
Here. Okay, the first thing that we have on our agenda is to approve the agenda. I understand that we have a copy of, the agenda for this evening. And if we could get a motion for that.
I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda as presented.
Support?
Sandy, could we have a roll call?
Councilmember Shippers.
Yes.
Spolman.
Yes.
Stevens.
Yes.
Malama.
Yes.
Mayor Filkins.
Yes. And at this time, we'll open the floor for our first public comment. And if you would like to come forward, if you would please write down your name and your address as well as saying it for those of our city that are listening from home.
My name is Kathleen Mary Williams, and I live on William Street. And my concern tonight, of course, is about the water rates. First of all, I want to say something about some of us were without water for 5 weeks. But I must tell you, I believe it was on the 29th, on a Sunday in March, those water people were down digging them ditches in that awful storm. And my boy was there and my girl, and we took up a collection. We went to Burger King and conned them into letting us take some hot chocolate and coffee to them because it was terrible and they were out there working in that. Number two, I realized you're probably going to have to raise water rates, but I have to tell you there's a problem there with me. When you raise the water rates, you raise the sewer rate. So we're kind of getting hit a couple times there. In view of the fact that for the first time in a long time, I actually voted for the last taxes to pass because I thought there was a need for it. But this year, my cost of living raise was $15. And they proceeded to take $9.04 out for my Medicare. So that don't leave me much playroom there. And I think it's what it does, it concerns the senior citizens more or less. Probably, I mean, people, when I was working, I probably would never said nothing. But it is a hardship, and I don't know the ratio they use from the water for your sewer. But it seems that I don't really use the sewer that much. Because when I look on my bill, that's quite a bit more than the water bill. So I don't know if there's any way, I wouldn't mind a little bit of raise in the water rate to help pay for lowering those pipes in the ground and the pipes. But it bothers me that you get hit again with the sewer rates. And then my other thing I wanted to mention tonight was there were those who paid to have their water unfrozen, and come to find out it was actually in the street area that it froze. And I really think that my two neighbors, Rosie and Billy Clyde, I really think they should be reimbursed for that, because you know, they're both on fixed incomes of very low means. And to come up with $400 and $600 is a terrible, terrible thing on them. It might mean them not buying medicine. It might mean them kind of scooching back on their food. And when you're working, you don't think about these things, or I did. So I would appreciate it if the council would take these into consideration. I really think there should be something done about doubling or whatever it is they do from the water to the sewer rate, because to me it seems out of proportion. But I'm only one person, and I'll go along with whatever the majority says, because that's the rule. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no one else, we'll go ahead and close public comment. And next on our agenda is to approve the consent agenda. We do have the minutes from the regular meeting that was held on April 6th with some updates from Sandy that were put at our place. We have the minutes from the closed session held on April 6th, as well as the minutes from the work session that was held on April 6th. Could we have a motion?
Mayor,
Yes.
in front of everyone's spot was a recommendation for a revision to the regular meeting minutes. The recommendation is shown in red. If it is appropriate, the motion would be to approve the consent agenda as amended.
I'd like to make a motion to pull the minutes of the meeting out of the consent agenda to have discussion about the proposed changes.
Support.
Sandy, could we have a roll call, please?
I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
I'm getting a clarification. So we're doing, I know that,
My understanding is that, you know, if you want to discuss something, you have to pull it out of the consent agenda.
oh, and have a
And then
discussion
discuss
at
it.
a later, or, okay.
As a separate item.
and then we can approve the other two and then discuss
Yeah, are you talking about one set or all?
one.
Just the minutes that,
The amended minutes.
The regular session
were,
minutes.
that Councilmember Melama is requesting to be changed.
Those are the regular meeting minutes of April 6th.
Right, that would be A.
I mean, I know in the past we've just discussed them and changed them, but are we pulling this on another agenda item or just voting to talk about it?
It says there will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests it. And then it will be removed from the consent agenda and discussed separately. I believe that's what Councilmember Spillman is doing, and I support it.
That's
what it's-
fine, we just have never done that before, so I was just curious, so.
Okay, Sandy, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Spelman.
Yes.
Stevens.
Yes.
Melama.
Yes.
Shippers.
Yes?
Mayor Filkins.
Yes. Motion carries. Okay, so
When do
at this point, do we approve the other two set of minutes? Could I have a motion for the remaining two sets of minutes, please?
Just the one.
No, there would be two.
Oh, two?
The
Okay.
work session
Oh,
and the
okay.
closed session.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the work session and closed session minutes.
And do we have a support?
Oh, support.
So I'm still, so when is, we discussing the other one, right after, or is this on the agenda, or is this
Yes,
the
right
way?
after.
Okay.
Just need to get to that point. Sandy, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Stevens.
Yes.
Melama.
Yes.
Shippers.
Yes?
Spelman.
Yes.
Mayor Filkins.
Yes. So how do we step into that discussion now in regards to that set of minutes?
Any member of council may make a motion for approval that could then lead to a second and then to discussion.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from the regular meeting held on April 6, 2015, with the recommended changes that were in front of us with the red.
Support. And this would be the appropriate time for discussion by members of council, any questions,
Okay.
whatnot, before the roll call.
All right.
Yeah, I guess when I looked at this, I guess I would like some explanation about why the proposed changes. I think I understand why you would want more information in there about who all applied to be on the Civil Service Commission, but I don't know what. I'll just open it up, I guess, for you to maybe comment on why you want the
I
proposed
felt
changes.
that more explanation after going back and listening and reviewing what was said. I thought more explanation needed to be done on that particular topic. And especially with somebody applying, we've never had a late, we've never refused anybody that, we've never had a deadline. And I felt that an explanation, or at least explaining that it did come in on a Monday, and that the precedents had been set before with Board of Review as far as putting people on the agenda. Now, I know that that did not pass vote-wise, but I thought that this explanation at least clarified that situation a little bit more.
And then the comment about Mayor Filkins stating that what she was recommending.
I believe she made the motion. I believe the mayor made the motion.
It doesn't
She
look
didn't
like
make
it.
the
It
motion.
looked like Spelman made the motion and Shippers approved it.
I
Supported it.
very rarely make a motion.
I don't think you ever have.
I guess I would have to turn to Sandy
It was
on that.
stated that you are recommending that he be reappointed and then ask for a motion. That was how it was on the
take.
So that was my understanding, too.
So there's been a motion and a second. Unless there's any further discussion, it'd be
Okay.
appropriate for a roll call.
All right. Sandy, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Malama,
Yes.
Shippers,
Yes.
Spelman,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Mayor Filkins.
Yes. Motion carries. This evening, we have a proclamation for Earth Day, and I understand that there was an event on Saturday at the Senior Citizens Center, and I wondered if anyone was here this evening that participated in that event. Okay, if not, I'll go ahead and read the proclamation. Whereas the global community now faces extraordinary challenges such as global health issues, food and water shortages, and economic struggles, and whereas all people, regardless of race, gender, income, or geography, have a moral right to a healthy, sustainable environment with economic growth, and whereas it is understood that the citizens of the global community must step forward and take action to create a green economy to combat the aforementioned global challenges, and whereas a green economy can be achieved on the individual level through educational efforts, public policy, and consumer activism campaigns, and whereas it is necessary to broaden and diversify this global movement to achieve maximum success, and whereas Earth Day is the beginning of a new year for environmental stewardship commitments, to implement sustainability efforts and commit to an Earth Day resolution. And furthermore, let it be known that the City of Cadillac hereby encourages its residences, businesses, and institutions to use Earth Day to celebrate the Earth and commit to building a sustainable and green economy. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that I, Mayor Carla J. Filkins, hereby pledge this Earth Day, April 22nd, 2015, to support green economy initiatives in the City of Cadillac and encourage others to undertake similar actions. And the next thing on our agenda is a community spotlight.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. This evening, we have representatives from the Mayor's Youth Council here. Councilmember Shippers is the Youth Council advisor, and if you would be so kind as to perhaps introduce some of the Youth Council members that are here and ask them to come up and introduce themselves, that would be fantastic.
I would be honored to do that. We also have Cindy Tomaszewski. I was so close. I have mixed lips here, who serves from the JCs, who serves as the clerk for the Mayor's Youth Council. Would you all mind coming up to the podium here, all of you? Come on. We have 4 members with us tonight. Our youth mayor was unable to attend. She works and could not get off work. And another one of our members had a soccer game tonight, so she couldn't come. But I'm so proud of these young people and their efforts and their courage to step forward and try to do something for the community. And I could introduce you, but I would so love for people to hear your voices. Would you just step up to the microphone and tell us who you are? And
I'm Sienna Campo. I'm a senior at Cadillac High School. And yes, I am on the youth council.
I'm Cecilia Dubravik. I am a senior. I'm homeschooled, and I also take classes at a high school, so I'm kind of half and half. And I'm on the Mayor's Youth Council.
I'm Mary McMillan, and I'm a sophomore at Cadillac High School.
I am Dennis Kenny. I'm a sophomore, and I am homeschooled, and I am the Mayor's Youth Council.
they've been working, exploring projects with help from our police department, with help from, of course, the mayor and Mr. Pecha and others for projects to help serve the youth community. And not only do they meet as a youth council once a month here in Chambers, it's the third Wednesday of each month. They meet from 4 to 5 o'clock. Anyone is welcome to come, but you have to be under 19 to speak at public comment. It was kind of funny last time because I believe our mayor's parents were here, and she said, seeing no youth in the audience, and it was like, thanks a lot.
The youth mayor's parents.
Yes, the youth mayor's parents were here. But they in applying to youth council, they talked about things, they wrote about things that they saw as a need in our community, and one of them was safety and youth education for youth safety issues, as well as one that I found really exciting coming from the young people was, what can we do as a community to involve our young people more and make them feel like they want to stay in our community instead of move away. So those are the things that they're working on. We meet once a month. We've also had work sessions and have other work sessions planned. They are brilliant, dedicated, fun people to be around. I'm so honored to be able to work with them. I want to thank all you guys for letting me do this too.
Thank you. And we're going to look forward to having this group of young people come back after they have worked on their projects and share their experience with us, so that the next youth council coming in will be excited about that same type of opportunity. So thanks for coming this evening.
And I noticed there's some sophomores, which is awesome to see the range. Can they be on this for more than 1 year?
Sure enough.
Awesome. So you guys will have a year's experience and be in next year to lead the next group.
Right. Yeah.
Well, that sustainability is important, just like it is for us. With the 2-year and the 4-year alternating terms, we thought that would be helpful. This year, we're kind of building the airplane as we go because all of them were new at the same time, but they're doing a great job. But in the years to come, we'll have that same type of sustainability that we have, so that they can be mentors to the new people coming onto the council. So.
Thank you for doing this. It's amazing to see youth getting involved like that. It really is. It's exciting. And you got a smart group.
I'll say.
Yeah. We do. Okay. Sandy, communications?
There are several. The first one is from Wexford Misaki Great Start to display a banner from April 21st to April 27th for the month of the young child. Council may recognize this one. We had this earlier in the month, but the banner was damaged and they weren't able to put it up that week. So we'd like to put it up beginning tomorrow and carry it until Monday.
Motion to approve the display of a banner from April 21 to April 27th for the month of the young child.
Support.
Sandy, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Shippers?
Yes.
Coleman?
Yes.
Stevens?
Yes.
Melama?
Yes.
Mayor Folkins?
Yes. Motion carries.
The next request is from the Rotary Club for the closure of Linden between Chestnut and West Division from 8 a.m. to 8:45 a.m. on May 25th for the Stride for Strive 5K run and walk event.
I'll make a motion that we approve the request from the Rotary Club as presented for the closure of Linden Street between Chestnut and West Division from 8 a.m. to 8:45 a.m. on May 25th, 2015 for the Stride for Strive 5K run and walk event.
Support.
Sandy, could we have a roll, please?
Councilmember Spoolman?
Yes.
Stevens?
Yes.
Melama?
Yes.
Shippers?
Yes.
Mayor Folkins?
Yes. Motion carries.
The next request is from the Downtown Cadillac Association For street closures on Mitchell between Cass and Bremer, and Harris between Mitchell and Lake, and for the closure of the parking lot behind the old City Hall from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. on June 7th. The as-needed road closures from 11:30 to 1:30 p.m. on June 6th for train arrival and departures, and the display of a banner from May 26th to June 7th, all for the Back to the Bricks Cruise Cadillac. Joy contacted me today. She's unable to make it this evening. In fact, they're having a Back to the Bricks committee meeting, but she is asking that she be allowed to come back before the event and give an update.
Motion to approve the request of the Cadillac Visitors Bureau, the Downtown Cadillac Association for the street closures for the Back to the Bricks as presented.
Support.
So the question on that is are we for sure needing to close Mitchell on the 6th as well? Are we closing?
No, it's not. It's not on the 6th.
Right. With the, if we do the road closures for the train arrival and departures, would that just be on the Harris Street?
Harrison.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not on the Mitchell aspect? Okay.
My understanding, yes.
Just the way it was worded, I wasn't sure if we were closing Mitchell Street for that too, but.
So it's Mitchell and Harris on June 7th, and then as needed on June 6th for the train departures. Oh, I see what, yeah. And that's just Harris, or is that Lake?
It would probably be Lake also.
That's what I wondered, if they wanted Lake. Because even the other roads for the train, but.
It was a late addition, Councilmember Stevens, and I'm not sure that they're sure what they're going to need yet, and I think part of the meeting tonight is to firm that all up.
Oh, okay.
All right, Sandy, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Malama?
Yes.
Shippers?
Yes.
Spolman?
Yes.
Stevens?
Yes.
Mayor Filkins?
Yes. Motion carries.
The next request is from the Jack Pine Pickers for street closure of Lake between Harris and Cass from 6 to 9 p.m. on June 2nd, June 16, July 7, July 21, August 4, and August 18th for the Jack Pine Pickers concert.
And these must have been, they've been reviewed, it looks like, that no conflicts. I'm assuming all those dates are fine.
Yes.
I'll make a motion that we approve the request from Jack Pine Pickers to close Lake Street between Harris and Cass Street from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. on the June 2nd and 16th, and July 7th and 21st, and August 4th and 18th, 2015, for the Jack Pine Pickers concerts.
Support.
Sandy, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Shippers?
Yes.
Spolman?
Yes.
Stevens?
Yes.
Malama?
Yes.
Mayor Filkins?
Yes. Motion carries.
The next request is from Life Resources for the closure of Lake Street between Harris and Cass from 6:30 a.m. to 11 a.m. on May 30th for the Run for Life event. And Solon is here to answer any questions.
Or does that person want to
So you want to
be
tell
with
us?
the,
Yeah, come on up and tell us about it.
All right.
We're not as familiar with it.
This is our first annual run, so we're excited about that. It's going to be very early in the morning on Saturday morning, backing up with that with our 17th annual Life Walk that we do through town. But we'll be doing a 5K. And if I could remember the streets, but it's going along the lake, across from the school, and turning around a little shy of Cheryl's Landing and coming back with a police escort and several volunteers at the streets to keep people safe there. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, can we have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the request of Life Resources for the Run for Life event as presented.
Support.
Stereo sound. TA. Councilmember Shippers. Do we have a roll call?
Councilmember Spolman,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Melama,
Yes.
Shippers.
Yes.
Mayor Filkins.
Yes. Motion carries.
The next request is from the Made in Michigan Farmers Market for the use of a portion of the city parking lot on Thursdays from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m., use of what we all know as the Farmers Market parking lot on Saturdays from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., display of market signs, and permission to allow the Cadillac Winery to establish a booth on Thursdays only for the 2015 market season. And I believe Jerry Adams could add something to this. There's
I'll actually
questions.
add it. In your packet, there's a detailed communication that does list 5 conditions that staff is recommending. The way that the motion has been proposed also notes those conditions as a part of your approval.
We probably need the dates in there, don't we? So that's from June 4th to October 15th? Or June 4th to October 17th, when you
If you
include
include the
Saturday.
Saturdays.
Actually, it's June 6th. Or excuse me, no, you're right, June 4th through October 17th.
It's called the 2015 market season in here, so, okay. I'll make a motion to approve the request from the Made in Michigan Market for the use of the city parking lot on Thursdays and the use of the farmers market on Saturdays, and to allow the Cadillac Winery to establish a booth. And included in this are the conditions noted in the council communication.
We'd like to add one condition. It's the same condition we did for the farm market, and that is that on the farm market parking lot area, that the northern access drive off Lake Street be closed.
And they'll be working with city staff to make sure that that happens.
Same condition was applied to the farm market as well. It's a congested area right there, and it's just not a good location to have a curb cut opening for traffic moving in and out. So we'd like that one closed during the hours of the market.
No, I was trying to, on the explanation under number 4, do they have to come back once the license is submitted to the state, like we've had in the past, or is this part of the approving of that?
I was going to mention that after the motion was approved and during our discussion.
All right. Do we have a motion?
We had a motion, right?
We did?
Yeah.
And did we have a
I don't think we had a
support?
motion.
You made the motion.
I made a motion.
I'll
Okay,
support
I
it.
lost that. I'm sorry.
But it hasn't been supported.
I'll support it, and then we can have the discussion.
Now we can have a
Yeah.
discussion.
Sorry. Yeah, it's kind of neat, and I think the public would be interested in that the Cadillac Winery can go there. It's part of a new,
State.
yeah, it's part of a new legislation, I guess, or new enactment by the Michigan Liquor Control Commission, allowing that to happen for sampling at Michigan farm markets. So that's kind of neat.
Okay. So that's the reason. Usually we would have had to have the come back, but that's exclusion. Yeah, thanks. I wouldn't have known that.
Yeah. The local beer and wine market, or wine groups have been working really hard to get some of this legislation passed, so they have more of a market to, display their products and have samplings, instead of just going to the winery or to the brew pub.
And members of council, it still will require police department sign off as well on that.
Right,
A
good.
police department sign off?
Yep.
And council review and approval, okay.
Okay, if there's nothing else, Sandy, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Melama?
Yes.
Shippers?
Yes.
Spelman?
Yes.
Mayor Folkins?
Yes. Motion carries.
We're getting more like California every day. Except for the weather.
I was going to say.
And the water, thank
Way more
goodness.
water.
Thank goodness. I take it back.
Okay, the next thing on the agenda, we have an appointment.
Yes, it's being recommended to approve the reappointment of Bob Clark to the Cadillac Wexford Airport Authority for a 2-year term to expire on May 15th, 2017.
And I've had an opportunity to go to some of those meetings, and he does a great job, especially having the experience of having prior been an employee out there. So 6 years he's already served, and I'll make a motion that we approve Robert Clark to serve an additional 2 years with his term expiring on May 15th, 2017.
Support.
Nobody showed up today with an application, did they? Sorry.
I don't know, but if they do, we should support them.
Sandy, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Melama?
Yes.
Shippers?
Yes.
Spelman?
Yes.
Stevens?
Yes.
Mayor Folkins?
Yes. Motion carries. Okay.
Okay. Under public hearings, Mayor and members of the City Council, the first public hearing tonight is to consider approval of a request from Metal Punch Corporation for an industrial facilities tax exemption certificate in the amount of $249,344.49. This will assist Metal Corp in essentially paying back the cost of some high-precision equipment, as well as retaining 3 positions at the company here in Cadillac. Sandy, is there a representative here? I know we reached out. Yep, sir. Hi. If you would mind introducing yourself and maybe just explaining a little bit about the machinery we acquired, that'd be fantastic.
My name is Scott Allen. I'm general manager of Metal Punch. And yes, the piece of equipment we purchased will hold about 3 positions or add positions. With the type of work that this piece of equipment will run is high precision. We've already seen a substantial amount of increase in workflow in this machine.
Just for the audience's sake and for mine as well, what type of work does Metal Punch do?
We're probably 80% automotive. We do get into food service. We basically make dies and the molds that may form some of the parts. A lot of your pop can tops that you see, your food soup cans that tops, we make the dies that form that. We also do a lot of gear profiling. A lot of your whole radiator vents. This machine runs the sharp pieces that actually form that mold.
I believe you're in medical equipment too. Correct?
We do. We have done in the past several different medical. At this point, we're not running any. But yeah.
So what do you do for the automotive industry?
A lot of the door panels, transmission. We catch a lot of overflow from other machine shops that either can't do the work or, tighter tolerance. We run a couple 5-axis mills that allow us to run different types of jobs. A lot of specialty stuff.
Scott, how many employees do you have now?
We were roughly about 40 to 45.
And you've been in the community for quite a while, as long as I can remember.
Yes, sir. We probably running, 44 years there at Metal Punch?
Yeah, I think you came about the 70s, wasn't it? Somewhere around in there, the early 70s.
Yep. Anything else?
Thank you.
Mayor, it'd be appropriate to open up the floor to
Yes.
any public comment.
At this time, we will open the floor for any public comment as it relates to this tax exemption.
I think Metal Punch has done well to survive our economy, which isn't perfect yet, but they've been around a long time with the help of Cadillac has always put a lot of work into maintaining industry here. They did do something important they didn't mention, and that was they made I don't remember the size it was, but it was some type of huge screw that the telescope that was sent to outer space a few years back, probably in the 90s. Were you here then?
I've been there since 94.
94.
Yep. I don't recall that, but we may have.
It was in the Cadillac News at the time. I don't remember the size of it, but it was a huge, like a gear or threaded type that the telescope would run up and down on. Doug might be with that, I'm not sure.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no one else, we'll close the public comment portion of the public hearing and open it for discussion of the council.
It's nice. Metal Punch has consistently been before us with these, which is very appreciative for making a commitment to the Cadillac and to the employees as well. And I would like to make a motion that we approve the request for Metal Punch for an industrial facilities tax exemption certificate in the amount of $249,344.49, approving the resolution and the letter of agreement as presented.
Support.
That was like
He's got it.
equal.
We've closed the public comment. Okay. Okay, is there any other discussion? Sandy, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Shippers.
Yes.
Bowman.
Yes.
Stevens.
Yes.
Malama.
Yes.
Mayor Folkins.
Yes. Motion carries. Thanks for coming. Okay, the second public hearing?
The second public hearing is for the 2016 through 2020 5-year capital improvement program. Our finance director, Owen Roberts, has a slideshow accordingly.
All right, thank you. I'll keep it brief so that we have more time to ask questions if we want. And I know we have a few more things here going. So this is the public hearing for the 5-year capital improvement program. This will cover the next 5 years, beginning July 1, 2015, and ending on June 30, 2020. First, just like to introduce more for the sake of the public. I know council's heard this several times, but I think it's important to note that this is not a process that's required by any of our own charter documentation or anything like that. We simply do it as a very, I think, important, valuable, and critical planning tool. We do that to help schedule some of these projects, especially the construction projects that may involve multiple departments, so it helps us coordinate those, especially as far as putting utilities infrastructure in while the street is already torn up. So that helps us prioritize these projects. Obviously, there's a lot of streets in town that need work. We try to address them from the perspective of greatest need first, and we do that, I think, importantly by coordinating. Sometimes a project may be pushed forward because of a utilities infrastructure priority. Other times it's moved forward for the street priority. So it's an important part of our overall planning and budgeting process. Again, for the sake of those that may not have heard some of this before, we define a capital project by any physical asset or major piece of software that costs greater than $7,500 and has a useful life of greater than 1 year. $7,500 isn't just a completely arbitrary number. That is, as you guys know, the council's spending threshold, so we try and limit it to the projects that will be back in front of you for approval. So the types of capital projects that you might see in this document, and there are some of all of these: street projects, water and sewer, pipes, infrastructure, equipment, projects here at the municipal complex, which there are some of those in the current version of the document. And other special projects, there's a couple that we'll highlight tonight having to deal with some recreation opportunities and projects. Projects in the parks, the skate park, projects like that. Purchase of vehicles, including trucks, police vehicles, fire apparatus, service trucks, anything like that, and any other kinds of heavy equipment that you'll see: plows, front-end loaders, tractors, etc. And again, always like to point out that all of the projects that are a part of this document, upon your approval, aren't necessarily approved as a green light for the project. They're simply approved in this document, and then they flow into the budget as funds are available. So the summary of the current document, it looks like this: a grand total of just over $14.5 million worth of projects. There are 157 total projects in this year's version of the document. Some building projects, and this may include outside parking lot improvements, things like that. A couple of projects in the cemetery, community development, which will mostly be a couple of the recreation or downtown development projects that we'll highlight in a minute. Just over $1 million in equipment, $1.2 million in heavy equipment. Some industrial park projects, annual investments in information technology, both on the hardware and the software side. Some public safety vehicles, recreation projects, and again, these are all detailed by type as well in the document. About $3.3, almost $3.4 million in street infrastructure projects. The purchase of 7 trucks over the next 5 years. 28 projects related to utilities infrastructure, totaling about $4.7 million. As you'll see in a moment, obviously the final phase of the well field relocation is the majority of those funds, and then a couple of cars as well in here as staff vehicles. One of the things that's typically most at least from the public perspective, what we get the most questions about are what streets are coming up. So I've highlighted the year 1 street projects that we have, and again, these should be completed by next June 30th. West Division Street, Everett Street, Holly Road, East Garfield Street, Simons, Selma, and Aldrich Street. So between the street and utilities portion of those, it's almost $1.7 million. For the general government part of that, not the utilities part, but for the street portions of that, we are looking at issuing bonds. We talked about that as part of the current year budget, and we have had a couple of initial conversations with our financial advisor, and so we look to be bringing that forward very soon. Obviously, as you look at $3.3 million, that bond issuance is going to be a critical part of being able to do this level of street construction. So that's something that will be in front of council here over the next couple of months. Again, as we talked about, the most significant project in the document, about 20% of the total costs, is the well field relocation project. Again, this is phase 2. We all remember phase 1 completed just a couple of years ago on the Crosby Road site. This is the second phase to relocate the remainder of the wells that are needed to provide water to the system. The anticipated costs is up a little bit from last year, and that's mainly due to the addition of an amount to fund the abandonment of the old well. We're still not exactly sure what all we'll need to do as we abandon that, but that abandonment process will be part of that final phase of the relocation project. As far as timing on that goes, the first thing we need to do is pick a spot. I do know we've received a couple of appraisals, and I know over the next few months, we're hoping to move forward with purchasing a site for that final phase of the relocation. Obviously, that's a project that the council will have to be very intimately involved in here over the next couple of months. A project that I'm personally kind of excited about and want to garner some public interest in, and that's, I know Chris has already covered it well for us in the newspaper, but here over the next couple of months, we're going to start making some plans to paint the water tower. So this is not a country song, but we do need to pick a color, and obviously, you know, I think it's been, there's a picture of it there on the slide. I think it's been that color, you know, since I moved back probably in 95. So what we're doing here as part of this process will be a very visible landmark for the community for a long time. So I think it's pretty exciting. I think it's a way to just help garner some public excitement, some energy locally as we pick how to paint the tower. So you know, whether we have some kind of color contest, some image or graphics contest, and or whether the council wants to kind of take that leadership, however you guys want to. But I think it's just a good opportunity because it'll be so visible for such a long time. I think we could all use something here to rally around and get some, just to have some fun with. It's a significant, obviously, project for the utilities department to maintain the integrity of the tower. But if we can do that and have a little fun at the same time, I think that'll be good.
Just don't ask my 2.5-year-old granddaughter when my sons were discussing what color to paint their beehives. She
Yes.
piped up with pink, so
Yeah.
they're going to have pink beehives.
Thinking, you know, the water balloon launcher with balloons full of paint, just shoot the thing, you know, it would be abstract art on the water. It would certainly be noticeable. People would talk about our water tower if it was like that. So
I love that idea.
I know that Jeff and I talked today, the water tower is going to be inspected this week, so we'll have kind of an understanding of the scope of the project and whether we'll have to completely redo the inside or if it's mostly an exterior type project. And I know we have to enlarge the access hole and put some guardrails on the outside, and so Jeff has offered to do tours on the top of the water tower. So if anybody's interested, you can ask him. These are a couple of projects that I just wanted to highlight for you. These are in year one of the document, and they are, we'll talk about when you see me up here in a few minutes to talk about the annual operating budget. These have made it into the budget. So we're looking at the Rotary Performing Arts Pavilion upgrades. The current estimate on the remainder of that project is about $300,000. For both of these projects, we're looking at a combination of local funds, contributions, city dollars, a variety of funding to be able to make these projects happen. The Heritage Park Place Plans project is one where we already have received a grant for a portion of that project, and so that I believe was $200,000, that grant that we've already received, Marcus, for that project. So that'll help out funding a large portion of that. A couple of these things, the DDA has indicated a willingness to commit some of their captured tax dollars to help make these projects a reality. So the slide that's there has the kind of the current iteration of the drawing or the plan for that project. So if you want a better image of that, you know, I think we could make that happen as well. But those are two, I think, pretty exciting projects tying in really to the downtown and making those look really good. Just a couple of other quick overall project highlights that we're looking at in the document. the purchase of 4 plow trucks throughout the document, or throughout the years in the plan, at a total cost of $700,000. These trucks obviously are not cheap. We have typically, and you've heard me say this before again, but for the sake of the public, we've typically assigned a 10-year useful life on these trucks, as far as being able to depreciate them officially. But our newest truck, which you approved the emergency repair for last time, is a 2006. So clearly there's a need for some replacement on those. I think it's testament too, though, to the way that we treat the vehicles and our maintenance program with some of them, that we've been able to get a lot longer out of this heavy equipment than what we had originally planned for. There is a street sweeper in the project, or in the plan, which this time of year I think you clearly see the need for a good street sweeping process. This is not the one that we just approved the significant repair. We do have 2 of these, and they're a little bit different. There are 5 police patrol vehicles included in the program, 1 per year, one of which is the K-9 vehicle. There are 9 service trucks in the plan. There is an annual information technology investment, and that's both, again, workstations, core server infrastructure, and some software purchases as well. And a couple of just regular maintenance programs that Jeff has programmed into the document for well field testing and annual manhole rehabilitation. The first of which, on the manhole rehabilitation, you'll see in front of you later tonight. That sums up the projects that I really wanted to specifically highlight and point out for you tonight. As far as what's next on this document, we have talked about it at least a couple of times, conducting a public hearing tonight, and going to ask you at the end of the public hearing to approve this document. Again, that doesn't officially appropriate any money, doesn't give every project in the document the green light for funding and purchase, but it does just indicate an awareness that these projects are out there, that there's a need for this kind of investment. Year 1 then of this document becomes, at least as much as funds are available, becomes the capital budget for the fiscal year 2016 annual operating budget, and then that's where the funding and the approval are specifically addressed. So on these big projects, you could see them up to 3 times or more. You'll see them here, you'll see them when you approve and talk about the budget, and then you'll see them to approve the purchase or the bids when those projects are actually a go. So that's kind of the plan at this point. I'm going to go ahead and sit down, and we can continue with the public hearing, and we'll be available for any questions that anyone may have.
Okay, at this time, we'll open the floor for public comment portion of this hearing.
Terry Harvey, Cadillac, Michigan. I'd like to leave these with interconnects.
Okay. Thank you.
Photos if you share. When I read the 5-year, I couldn't quite believe it. Wasn't happy. I won't use the terms that I thought, but back in about 2005, talked to Mr. Campbell about a water problem on Bremer Street. The way the street is collapsing over the years. And he had indicated that they couldn't do anything that year, but he said it was in the next year's budget. I believe I might be off 1 year there, but I think it was 2005 going into 2006. And he said, I'll show you in the book, and he got out a hardcover book and flipped it open, and he's looking, and he said, well, it's not here. And then he went to the shelf, got another different set of papers out and looked through there, and he said, well, it's been taken out of next year, so it's been moved, I think, 2 years at that time. And over the years, it's basically been moved about every 2 years. Only this year, they moved it 5 years. And I don't know if any of you have looked at the street. I'm sure most of you may not be engineers, but Doug might be. I shouldn't say that. Marcus might be. Any of you could be. Anyway, anybody with any common sense could go down that street from the top to the bottom and know that that should be either an emergency repair or one of the first repairs this coming year. Should not be the 5th year to where it'll get bumped another 5 years. I'm not sure if I'll be here. I turned 70 this year, so 5 or 10 I might make it. So I don't think you can honestly vote for what's on that paper without taking a look at that, or if you already have looked at that and wondered why it's that way. Because that, according to this gentleman, the 5 years, not really an approval, but a suggestion, but the current one coming up, your vote tonight approves that the way it is. And that's probably the worst street you got in Cadillac. Down behind Speeds, there's mainly the upper half of that street and the very lower portion had mostly traffic in the west lane. Trucks that drive up like the UPS or FedEx, which a lot of them use that street cutting up to Mitchell. Their vans tip from side to side when they go through a couple of the big dips in there. And when you get up near where the old railroad tracks used to be, it's strictly pretty much the northbound lane is usable now. Last year there was a section that went out nearly to, they don't bother to paint it, but I don't know what you paint either there, but out to approximately the center line, there was about a 20 to 30 foot area of blacktop, which wasn't good blacktop, but it collapsed approximately a foot. And someone put road gravel in to bring it up to the general height of the road. I assume that was the city. And I think American Asphalt put asphalt in there when they had some asphalt left from the repair job they did in the area. But I would ask that you don't vote on something that you haven't taken a look at. Unless maybe you've taken a look at it, but I don't see how anybody with an engineering degree, somebody that works in water and sewer, could drive on that street, look at it, it's a block away, and not know they've got a problem. Thank you.
Do you want your walker, Kathleen?
Thank you. I just wanted to mention, if we keep at the same level we're doing now, raising water rates at 3%, let's say every other year, which is also gonna raise our sewer rates unless they decide to change the formula, which I really wish they would take a look at it and see what I'm trying to say. I would then be paying, if I live 16 more years, I would then be paying $81 for my water bill. So just for kicks one evening, I sat down and
Kathleen?
I figured all my taxes.
Kathleen? Do your comments have to do with the water and sewer increases?
Oh, okay.
That'll be the next public hearing.
Okay, I didn't understand, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
that'll be the next one.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
My name's Alana Belterman on Plett Road. I just had a question for you. You know, you said, like, if you agree to this, that it doesn't mean everything's going to be in there. Who decides? Who decides when there's money, what project you're going to do first? Who approves that? Who has that final say?
Ultimately, the council. Yep.
So-
Anything in here, the council has the authority. Yep.
Okay, so they're not going to get, like, started and then somebody's going to say, oh, well, we need to approve this.
No.
Okay.
Nope.
Okay, so I didn't realize every single project there gets approved by council.
Yep, and that's how we picked that $7,500 threshold is because any project that's over $7,500 has to receive approval by the council.
Unless it's an
emergency, yep. Which none of these things, as part of the plan, if they're in the plan, they're not yet at this point deemed an emergency, obviously, so.
Yeah, right. Thank you. That's it.
Okay, seeing no one else, we'll go ahead and close the public comment portion of this hearing and open it up for council discussion.
Marcus, I know there's a formula for figuring out streets, right? There's a
rating system.
Rating
Our
system.
city engineer uses in prioritizing the urgency of the street repairs. That being said, certainly we'd love to have more available dollars to do more streets, and part of the finance director's presentation is to actually do more than we've ever done, at least in recent history, with the advent of getting some additional dollars through bond issuance.
One of the streets that we might have to take a look at putting on that 5-year plan is Chestnut. I don't think that's on, and that whole stretch from the high school west to North Boulevard is getting pretty bad. I don't know how it can last more than 5 years.
Referencing on that, maybe Mr. Petra could answer with what Mr. Harvey addressed. I know that there had been some meetings, I think, with you and staff, and is that on that item, or was that a different item? Was this about the road issues, excuse me, not the road issues, but the sewer and water? Was that a different item that those discussions were addressing?
Over the last couple of years, there were a variety of meetings that Mr. Harvey and I attended together, along with some other key members of staff, that included the condition of his building, the condition of the road, and the condition of the utility infrastructure underneath the road. So sort of all of the above, Councilman.
Yeah, this makes it, first of all, crediting Mr. Roberts for this 5-year plan. I know you mentioned how this isn't a step that's a requirement by our charter, but I'm so excited we've been doing this for so many years of a 5-year plan, and they don't always work out the plan. I mean, something's in, but at the same time, a lot of times when we've approved something, that's for the public's benefit too of knowing, is a lot of times on some of these projects, why we sometimes have had 5 approvals in a way, because they've been approved in the 5th year, the 4th, 3rd, 2nd, if it runs like it's supposed to work. And I think that explains some of the confusion, like everything that was talked about in year 1 of this capital budget then shifts over into our budget, where that's usually where now we've appropriated funds, put funds aside for that project, and then later on definitely voted on. But, Owen, I know you put a lot of time into this, and it's appreciated of us. I'm excited that we have a 5-year plan. And as you kind of mentioned, we've had times where that shifts. Something can go from year 5 to 1, or depending on how it works. But I know with the budget, everything else you have, it's a lot of extra work, and the presentation, also the packet that we have, is very helpful. And I know I would probably, to not stop this from taking place, to this plan, because this is what we know of, we always can add things, and maybe of us getting more of an update on that Bremer Street situation, we can always look at it. It doesn't set it in stone, like for 5 years we can't do anything with it because it's not in there. this is a good plan that we use, but it would definitely be, I don't know if council agrees, but it'd be nice to get some more information on that so we can make a decision on whether maybe that's something we need to look at of jumping into a faster pace.
Right, that 5-year document is merely a roadmap, and it's a working document that can be updated based on what happens with our equipment or what happens with our roads. And so as it moves closer to that year 1, then it becomes less mobile, but when it's out in 2, 3, 4, and 5, we can prioritize things if a need arises.
I'd be happy to work with Bruce, our engineer, and getting you an update, some of the more details on Bremer Street and the utilities underneath.
That'd be great.
Good.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the 2016 to 2020 5-year capital improvement plan program. Always do that.
Support.
Sandy, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Spolman.
Yes.
Stevens.
Yes.
Melama.
Yes.
Shippers.
Yes?
Mayor Folkins.
Yes. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. The next 2 items are related. They are the public hearings for the increase that's being recommended for our sewer rates and our water rates. We do have the public hearings as separate items on the agenda. However, we only have a single presentation for you this evening that we'll provide at this point.
Oh, I was hoping for 2.
Could we work with that? We really wanted to.
Well, we can stop it.
No.
No.
We're good.
Yep.
You know, his
We appreciate
presentation is
that.
48 minutes.
Not Jeff's.
Sorry, we have
Times
something
2.
else we have to do at 8.
Oh,
Hello, Mayor and council members. I'm here to discuss the proposed rate increase for water and sewer. I got a slide we can go through, and then at any point, if you have any questions, feel free to stop me and we'll go over them. Tonight, what we're going to do, it's a council goal to review our rates annually. Last 4 years, we really haven't had anything to do. We've kept them the same. This public hearing presentation is for both water and sewer. There's a rate determination in it. There's some utility billing basics, the proposed rate change, and an example of the impact of the proposed changes if we do the increases. The utilities, if a lot of people don't realize, the utilities is an enterprise fund. We are self-sufficient. We get no tax revenue at all. So everything we use, we have to make in a year. And we have to operate as a business, but not a business that wants to make a profit. We're a business that wants to break even at the end of the year. At the end of the year, we want that to be a 0. We don't want to overcharge our customers. So our goal is to be self-sufficient, but not overcharge our customers. The city manager, finance director, utility director analyze the utility fund. We make a determination of a rate to keep the fund balanced. And this year, after a hiatus of 3 years, we think that 3% would be the rate that would keep the fund balanced. This rate increase will be applied to the following services: water rates, sewer rates, sprinkling meters, flat rate sewers, and the fire protection lines. The refuse and recycling rates may change, and they actually may go down. We're waiting for a new COLA to be determined. We think at the worst they'll stay the same, but we're thinking it might actually go down. And the township rates remain the same due to the sewer contracts we have with the townships. This is our accounts and meter usage by size. 91% of our customers, the big yellow, that's all of us, 91% of them are on the 5/8" meters. We account for 27% of the water usage. So every day we account for about 700,000 gallons, the citizens of Cadillac. The businesses account for everything else beyond that. So, a huge percentage of us use a third of the water, and then our manufacturing bases and other things make up the rest of it. So, our bill is comprised of two services or two charges we do. One is a ready-to-serve charge, an RTS charge for water and sewer. That's a monthly charge. It's based on the sewer meter, and that's just a ready-to-serve. We are connected to your house. We're ready to give you water. We're ready to take your sewer. That is just, and that usually pays for the capital projects of the system, because you might go on vacation for the month or something like that, but we still have to be ready all the time to serve you. And then the second charge is a commodities charge, and that's based on the actual amount you use. So it's based on 100 cubic feet, which is about 750 gallons. And in the summer, we use sewer averaging for yard watering. So in the wintertime, we take what you run, how much water you run in the winter, because we know you're not sprinkling your lawns. And then in the summer, we say anything above that amount, they're sprinkling their lawns with. So, and then we won't charge a person for that amount. So we actually adjust the bills in the summertime to give people breaks for watering their lawn, because it's not going to the sewer plant, so we don't have to treat it.
Jeff,
Yes.
is the ready-to-serve charge the same in all single-family resident?
If you have a 5/8" meter and you're being billed by the city of Cadillac, it is. If you are in a condo association or something where they include the water, it could be a different charge. But for the city of Cadillac, all 5/8" meters will be the same charge throughout the city. We do have people that might have a residence that would have a 3/4 inch or a 1 inch, and those would be different charges, but that's because it's a different meter.
And that doesn't include a certain amount that you use up to a certain level?
No, other towns do that. Ours, we do not. So this is the ready-to-serve proposed changes. Currently, I'll hit some of these, a 5/8" meter, we charge $6.05 a month. We're looking at going to $6.23. So that's a 18-cent increase. Let's say on the 1 inch, we're going from $14.84 to $15.29. That's going to be a 40-some cent increase. And then our big guy down here, the 8-inch line, we're looking at going from $534.12 to $550.14. This is for water. That would be a 16-cent increase there.
Jeff, would you mind just giving a quick, for instance, with respect to, who might have an 8-inch? That's not a residential.
Who's got that 8-inch thing going?
Industries. We have industries that'll have it. Probably the 5/8", 3/4, and 1 inch is predominantly homeowners, and anything above a 1 inch is either a commercial building or an industry. So.
If you use 200 gallons of water, what calculi do you use to come to the answer for the sewer?
Do you want me to?
I think we should wait until we open the public hearing.
Okay. When she says I'll answer it, okay?
Okay.
So, we're on sewer. Sewer, a 5/8" meter, you'll charge $9.76. Currently, we're looking at going to $10.05. Again, that's a 30-cent increase. I think I did the 1 inch, $24.42 to $25.15. That's 70 cents, I think. And then the big one, the 8-inch, industry again, is $879.61 to $906. So that's, again, that would be a $26 increase there. And that is for the ready-to-serve. Every house will get charged. If you have water and sewer, you'll get a water charge and a sewer charge ready to serve. This is our rate increase over the past 10 years. As you can see here, we had a nice flat 4 years here. We raised the rates here once. That would be the 11-12 fiscal year. 13 fiscal year we didn't raise, 14 fiscal year we didn't raise, and the current 15 fiscal year we haven't raised. We're actually looking at raising it for the 15-16 fiscal year. So there has been 4 years of the same rate and 3 years that we had no rate increase. So again, in the 11 fiscal year, we raised it for the 12 fiscal year, the 11-12 fiscal year. So basically, we've been at the same rate for 4 years. Water, the other part of the water and sewer charge is a commodities charge. Water is on a declining block based on usage. And what that means is the more water you use, the cheaper it becomes. Everybody pays the same amount for the first 6 100 cubic feet you use. Whether you're in industry or a resident, you get the same price. The next 96 or 94 100 cubic feet, everybody pays a lower price. Now, why industries get a break on this is a lot of us don't make it past the first 6 100 cubic feet, so we don't get that break. But the industries that use the next 94 100 cubic feet and maybe the next 900 cubic feet, 100 cubic feet, over a month they can actually get a pretty substantial break in their water bills because they used more. On the sewer, it's a flat rate sewer. It doesn't matter how much you use, you pay the exact same amount to treat it. Again, the residential sewer charges is an average for lawn watering during the months. It's average during May, June, July, August, and September. So we'll take those winter months, see how much sewer you used, and in the summertime, if you use over that amount of sewer or water, we're going to say you're sprinkling your lawns. Whether you're sprinkling your lawns or you've had your brother and sister-in-law move in, we're going to say you're sprinkling your lawns because a lot of people do, and that doesn't get to the wastewater plant, so we don't have to treat it. Okay, this is a 3% charge for our increase for everything here. You can see the sewer, I'll start over here, went from $2.26 to $2.33 for commodities. So treating that 750 gallons of waste went up 7 cents. All right, for every 750 gallons. For the water, again, it went from 127 to 131. You see there, that's for the first 6. Everybody pays that. If you use enough that you get into the second rate, you'd actually go from $1.08 to $1.11. If you used enough to go to the third rate, you'd go from 96 cents to 99 cents. You know, if you used enough to go to the fourth rate, you'd go from 87 to, or 83 to 85. And the last one went from 73 to 75 cents. You know, this guy out here, he's using 200,000 cubic feet a month. And that's 200,000 times 748. He's up there at 1.5 million, something like that. So one of our heavy industries, one of our bigger industries would be using that kind of water. It's interesting to know Cadillac has 10 million gallons reserved for it to use for water, for water of our system. When we overuse that, when we go and we need 11 million, we'll have to go to the state and ask them for more ability to draw out more than 10 million. They won't let us do that declining block anymore. Actually, they'll have a reverse declining block where it'll be more used, the more you actually spend, because they want to conserve. We use 2.5 million gallons, 3 million gallons a day, so that's a ways away. But at some point in the future, they'll actually reverse that declining block and actually make it an increasing block that the more you use, the more you pay to force conservation. So currently, that's what they say. So
when cities do they put a hold on people watering their lawns, is it because they're getting close to that maximum?
No, I think cities put a hold because their wells are drying up, you know, more than that maximum. You know, we all know what our maximum is, and we've had that baseline capacity given to us by the state, and they don't take it away. It's just that Cadillac at one time had so many wells because we didn't have metering in our town. We overbuilt our water system. But we got the baseline capacity. Now that people are conserving and we're using water and we have meters, we have a lot of capacity out there, which is good for us, which means for a lot of years we won't have to go back to the state and ask for more ability to draw more water out of the ground. So, water and sewer rate increase, a residential example, this is just water and sewer. If you use 300 cubic feet, 300 cubic feet, that would be 15, that'd be 2,200 gallons. Your bill will go, your bill will go from $26.40 to $27.20. That's an increase of 80 cents. For the combined water and sewer, your bill will go up 80 cents. If you're a 600 cubic foot user, your bill will go up $1.13 from $3,699 to $3,812. I figured that, and we'll have an example later on, we've always used 700 cubic feet as what the average citizen of Cadillac uses. So we're talking probably $1.24, $1.30 that your bill will go up a month. All right. So on the industries here, a 1-inch meter will go from $341 the bill to $351.24. That's a $10.25 increase. And again, this is using 2,200 gallons a day, this customer. You get to the 4-inch meter there, the bill goes from $6,794.33 to $6,998.53. That's a $204 increase, 20 cents. Well, that guy's using 50,000 gallons a day. So that means every other day he's using 100,000 gallons. And that means every 20 days he's using 1 million gallons of water. I mean, this is a heavy user here that's doing a lot of usage. And it's not only the water, you know, we call it a water bill, it's the sewer too. Once that hits that sewer pipe, we have to treat it. So it's both water and sewer. It's interesting to note, in 2012, our last rate increase, the industries made up 45% of our flow. This rate increase that we're doing this one, the industries have conserved water now. They're down to 35% of our flow. So they have done a lot to conserve water, and you know, maybe it is, you know, our bills, but they do recognize the price and they do things to conserve. So this is a utility bill, a resident. This is our average bill, 5/8-inch meter, 700 cubic feet. Without a tidy tote and with a tidy tote, it'd be $52.61 without a tidy tote, and it'd be $54.81 with a tidy tote. Now, you get water for that, you get sewer for that, you get garbage for that, you get a tidy tote for that, and you get recycling for that. This bill, $54.81, you get all that stuff. All right. When we did this last rate increase, you did not get recycling. When we did this last rate increase, garbage wasn't the price it is now. It was $14 and some cents. In 2011, the without a tote was $54.41. Today it's $52.61. We've lowered the cost to $1.80 from what we did in 2011. And that's mainly because of the garbage price going down so substantially. For with the tote, with the tidy tote, it was $56.61 in 2011. It's $54.81 now. So again, that's another $1.80. Both of those have lowered $1.80 because of what the garbage, because of the garbage. And this now, that's the price that I'm proposing this now. When you take the garbage and the recycling that haven't changed, and they might actually decrease, and then you put the water increases and everything, it isn't a 3% raise on the bill. On the total bill, it's a 1.9% raise, because recycling and garbage is not increasing. You know, so it's something to think about. And we're roughly 4%, the numbers I gave you, we're 4% lower than we were in 2011. The total bill is 4% lower. And that's because of garbage and garbage. I mean, it's not water, it's not sewer, it's not recycling, obviously, that's a $2.50 charge. It's the rates we're getting on our garbage right now, so we're actually lower than we were in 2011. I love this slide. It shows us where we're at. City of Cadillac, we're right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, fifth from the bottom. We are $40. The proposed rate for water and sewer would put us at $40.58 for water and sewer if we use 5,000 gallons. Okay, $40.50. The average, if you take the average here, it's $60.31. The mean, so the middle of this pack here, the mean, or the mean, I should say, is $60.31. The median, the exact middle in here, is $54.43. And we're at $40.58. So we're $14 off the middle, the exact middle of the chart, and we are $20 off the average of the chart. And that's to the low side. All right. I do have some other people in here. On the high, we have Manistee. They're at $116 and some odd change for their sewer. Same amount, 5,000 gallons a month. Next, Traverse City, you can see it's just up from us here. I did put Herrings in when they get their plant running and their new figures over here. They're on the high side with their new plant and that. So if the numbers they have provided in the past is the numbers they use. So kind of interesting to know that we're so low. So we're not really on the high end. We're actually kind of on the low end here. Rates would become effective July 1st, 2015 if you pass it. Flat rate sewers and fire protections increases would be on the June bill because those services are billed in advance. And metered water and sewer increases would be on the August bill because those would be after the water is used. Some projects we have. We want to submit the Drinking Water Revolving Fund for next May 1st. They do it once a year. So if we do the DWRF, we would be shooting for May 16th. As Owen said, we'd like to get the land purchase council to get, decide where we want to go, and we'd like to put a well in and start the testing into that. If DWRF funding is approved, then we will design, bid out, and start construction of the second well field. We're going to paint the tower in the spring. I do enjoy a good contest on that tower, so I think we should do something. Maybe the winner gets to bungee jump off the tower. I don't know,
Zip line.
And I won't be submitting anything.
Zip line.
A zip line from the
City Hall.
Zip line, right. And then currently we have the SAW grant project going on. That is a $2 million grant we got, which we're starting to ramp up to determine how our infrastructure in water, or in sewer and in storm water is actually going. And do you guys have any questions currently?
The last rate increase, well, actually, we need to open up for public comment, so I think I'll save mine based on what the public comments are.
Do you want me to sit down or stay up here?
You can go ahead and sit down.
All right.
Thank you very much. So at this time, we'll go ahead and open public comment as it relates to the water and sewer increase hearing. Did you want to speak, Kathleen?
I just wanted to add a little bit to what I already said.
Okay.
I was figuring if
it's okay.
I live 16 more years.
You're okay right there.
I would be paying like $80-some a month. And that would be, well, right now, my water bill is 1/25 of my income right now, when I figure my income. So then one evening I was figuring all my taxes that I pay and everything combined, and that would, I called water and sewer bill is a type of tax, is that correct?
That is
No,
not
it's a service. It's a fee for service.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Anyways, I figured that out of every dollar, it was costing me 38 cents in all the combined taxes that we paid. And so I got to thinking, when they threw the Boston Tea Party, it was probably not anywhere near that, was it?
Well, I don't know. I haven't done that kind of figuring.
So that's all I had to say.
Okay.
Kathy Foster, Chapin Street. Well, I learned this evening that I use way too much more water than the average person, and that's why my bill's big. I don't have a problem with that. I get the increase. I don't know if this is the time that I ask about maybe changing the people that don't pay for their water. If you don't pay your water bill in January, the city does not even turn you off till May. So the people that pay their water bill are basically making up for people that don't pay their water bill. I don't know who changes that rule.
We do.
You guys do.
And we will.
DTE consumers, they don't give you 6 months to think about it. I've had some experience with the state of Michigan, and I know that until you have an actual shut-off on your water, the state will not help you. And then if you let them go 6 months, it's too big to even be covered because there's a maximum on a water bill. That's all I got.
Thank you.
If I may, the only thing I'd
Yes.
add is it's the water used in January, you get shut off in May, not the water January bill. You wouldn't get billed for the January usage till February, and so it's one short, you can't get billed for what you haven't used yet, so.
Yeah, but how big do you let that bill get?
But I'm just saying it.
No, but I mean, can it get really big?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
She needs to know it's 3 months.
Actually, we had discussion in our work session this evening about the fact that it's a 3-month period of time. Is that correct, Jeff?
Yeah.
They're allowed to go 3 months before they get shut off.
I did have another question about, were you considering charging $20 to turn it off and turn it on, or you're not going to do that?
There was some discussion about putting a fee on that, because when people have to have their water shut off and turned back on, resources from the city are needed to be able to do that.
Thank you.
So it costs the city.
That's what I was concerned about. If you wanted to, had to have it turned off, and you are, even if you're paid up, it's going to cost you $40.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Looking at your chart is pretty self-explanatory when you get down to the low end of the chart as to where your rates are. And my address is Cadillac. I happen to be a resident of Herring Township, but there's a considerable difference in your rate, and the percentage that's going up I don't see as being. I do have some city water that I pay, and it's, you know, for
Jeff did a good job of presenting that.
minute amount that's going up, and it's probably due for that amount. The only question I've had on the sewer system, and I hadn't read anything in the paper, or water and sewer, was there was a request, I think, from the county for the city to fund the water and sewer extension to the new jail. And I probably missed a few days' paper, and I don't know how that turned out.
Yeah, that's
I
not
assume
part
that
of.
money would come out of the
Yeah.
water and sewer fund, but I didn't know I didn't know what the council decided on that, if they...
Yeah, that's not part of this discussion this evening.
Okay. They haven't made a decision on that then?
No. Okay, seeing no one else, we'll go ahead and close public comment and open this topic for council discussion. Jeff, the one question that I had earlier was the last rate increase that we had 3 or 4 years ago, was that also 3% at that time?
That was 4.5%. We thought we had some projects coming up, and we thought it was prudent to do a bigger raise to cover the cost of those projects, which was the well field. One of them was the well field, first phase. Obviously, we had sufficient funds to go extra years without raising it again.
I want to express my appreciation to the city for not raising the water rates and the sewer rates for the last 3 or 4 years. I was one of the council members that kind of whined and complained every year when they would bring forward the requests for yet another increase and another increase and another increase, and I thought, can't we ever go without an increase? And so now we haven't for a few years. And I guess, you know, that being said, I would support an increase at this time. I know that all of our expenses have gone up and we have to continue to meet those expenses, so. It was a nice presentation, very informative.
It was, and I think that it was very nice that you included in there that while we have to do the increase on the water and the sewer, that we are seeing a reduction in the garbage and the recycling to help offset some of that cost. It'll be good. So, you had something?
Oh, yeah. Well, one is to follow up on that discussion. You did mention, and this is probably more too for the public's knowledge, you mentioned that there could be a change in the trash removal cost. Now, how does that go? And I actually have to ask this because I don't remember. Is that something that just happens administratively, or is that something that I don't recall where we would actually come back and approve something like that?
Owen's got this one for you.
Yep, you're right. So a few years ago, the council passed a resolution that approved a markup. Okay, and so what happens is when you awarded the 5-year contract, both for recycling and the solid waste, that contract had was tied to an index for annual adjustments to the rate. So that was set in stone basically, and then council approved a markup over that to cover our costs of administering the billing and a lot of the other details of that. So that resolution basically says the customers will be charged the contractual rate plus 65 cents. So that 65 cents per month per residential refuse unit, basically. That generates, including the 45-cent markup on the totes, generates about $30,000 to the city, and so that covers our costs, like I said, to do all the billing. And also for the last few years, we've covered our portion, which for 2 or 3 years has been 100% of the household hazardous waste collection day. So there is some value, again, that we offer for that markup. So there's no council action, except when the 5-year contract comes up. There's no subsequent council action on that trash and recycling rate.
Sorry. A follow-up question to that. I know that we bill for the trash removal. We don't know how much trash comes in. I will say that one of the things when our council voted to allow the landfill to be basically we're outside sources and such, and we opened that up, it dropped that rate. I remember also wondering with the recycling if that has resulted in less waste going to the landfill, which would drop our cost. And if I remember this correctly, we're billing for that trash removal a set rate. We may have a surplus because even though we're paying this much per year, we're not spending that much. Is there any
that
analysis?
surplus would be all for the benefit of the hauler, unfortunately. So, they're paid a set contractual rate that's not based on volume. It's just based on you have
Excuse me, could you please keep it down while Owen's talking? Thank you.
So we have the contractual rate, and again, it's not a volume-based rate. It's just simply a contractual rate. So if the recycling has had a dramatic impact on the volume of waste that's being hauled and having to be put in the landfill, we don't see that.
But don't we look at that every year and they give us a reduction if something related to the price of gasoline?
That's just the index for the contractual rate. So if the contractual rate has two components, a fuel rate, which is a smaller portion of the contractual rate, and then there's a non-fuel, all other costs of doing business rate. So both of those are adjusted separately, but that's just tied then to an index. So the Department of Energy releases a report on fuel prices, and so we take that, compare March 31st of this year to March 31st of last year, and per the contract, the fuel portion of the solid waste rate adjusts accordingly automatically. And then we take the remainder of that, look at the CPI release for March 31st, which just came out Friday, and we also apply that then to the non-fuel portion.
So do we get annual or semi-annual reports from the waste hauler telling us how many tons of garbage that the city of Cadillac put in the landfill last year and how much they've put in the landfill since we started our recycling program?
We do not. No, that was not, that kind of reporting and follow-up was not part of the requirement for them as part of the contract.
Putting on my business hat, I would venture a guess that our solid waste may go up because now there's less volume, which means it is probably more expensive to run those trucks. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm worried about, but I don't know.
Yeah, and I think
I'm just saying that
we're in year 3 or year 4 of the contract.
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly.
It's not going to be more expensive to run the trucks because they're not going to run the trucks to the landfill unless they're filled. So they're going to have fewer runs to the landfill because of the recycling process.
I disagree. I don't think you're going to let a truck sit there with garbage in it. I think you're going to run it down the road, and it's the same way with running a semi down the road. If it's full, it's less expensive. If it's half empty, it's more expensive from a cost standpoint, paying back. I hope I'm wrong, but I would guess that it probably might happen that way. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, again, that impact won't be felt until this contract would be up and they would rebid. It's basically set for the term of this one.
I hope I'm wrong. Jeff, the other question I have, is there any provisions for hardship cases or anything along that line, or is there any agencies that could help possibly some of our senior citizens that might be struggling?
There are agencies out there, the
Council on Aging?
What?
I believe the Council on Aging might have.
Council on Aging, the Family Independence Agency, the Salvation Army, Love Inc. There's a lot of places out there that will help people that have problems, and we refer them to those when they come to us. So.
Okay. I was gonna just echo. It's funny. I had in my notes, Councilmember Spolman, to credit you for the years that you did really pressure us to really evaluate whether or not we do need to increase it. And I know I've gotten a lot of calls on this, but I mean, it is something that I think once people have heard that it's been 4 years since we've had to. That was one of our, I think what you helped bring back then was sometimes as a safety net, we would increase it just to do that, and we started to really look at that and make sure that it was a legitimate reason. And I know it sounds harder, but if we would have done a 1 year over 4 years, we would be at 4% increase now, plus the additions that we had every year. So I personally, I know the council appreciates the fact that it's tough in some budgets, it's a very difficult thing, but what we're trying to do, I know, is prevent from way back in history where they'd have to come out and all of a sudden do a double-digit increase in a year. And, you know, the good news, those 4 years, and I remember last year, or maybe 2 years ago, you mentioned the phase one coming in about $1 million under budget, which helped. We forecasted that larger increase on that, and we were able to make decisions happen that came in under budget, which allowed us to do a 4 years like that. And I do appreciate the presentation to help explain this out. It's not something that's comfortable for any of us.
Do you have a motion to make?
No, that was just, I'm too tired after all that.
Does someone have a motion to make?
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution to adopt ordinance 2015-6 to amend section 42-374 of chapter 42 of the city code to increase sewer rates in the city of Cadillac 3%.
Support.
Do we have a roll call, Sandy?
Councilmember Malama?
Yes.
Shippers?
Yes.
Coleman?
Yes.
Stevens?
Yes.
Mayor Folkins?
Yes. Motion carries.
And I'll
Thank
make a
you.
motion.
Well, I was going to say, Mayor, members of the city council, we should still open up a public hearing for the water rates, see if there's any additional comment before a motion's made for final approval.
Okay. So at this time, we will open the floor again for public comments as it relates to the public hearing for the increase in water rates.
I was wondering if we are no longer under the rule, I believe it's state rule, state of Michigan, when we do rate increases or property tax increases, are we not still subject to abiding by the gross national product or the cost of living, where there's a certain amount you can only do, or are we no longer under that?
Would that be the proposal A, limit on increase in taxes to the CPI? Yep, that does apply to your taxes and your taxable value, as you well know from being on the Board of Review now. But that same limitation doesn't apply to utility fees. Now, we are, by law, you can't use utility fees to pay for things outside of the costs of the system, because then, in effect, you would be passing a tax and calling it a user charge. So you have to maintain the integrity of the system, and you have to maintain the integrity of the user charges that you are charging so that they're not covering anything but costs to provide that service. So it's not under the same CPI restriction or limitation, but there are, very strict laws that apply to how you utilize the revenue. You're welcome.
Okay, seeing no one else, we will close the public comment portion of the hearing. Is there any further discussion on the part of the council, or do we have a motion?
Let's see if I get the right one. I will make a motion to approve the resolution to adopt ordinance 2015-07 to amend section 42-201 and 42-202 parentheses 3 of chapter 42 of the city code to increase water rates in the city of Cadillac 3%. Good thing that was written down.
And is there a support?
Support.
Sandy, could we have roll call, please?
Councilmember Shippers.
Yes.
Spolman.
Yes.
Stevens.
Yes.
Melama.
Yes.
Mayor Folkins.
Yes. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. This next item is a public hearing for the upcoming 2015-16 fiscal year annual operating budget. There is no action for City Council to take this evening. Owen?
Good, thank you. I appreciate that discussion. I know that's not easy. It certainly makes this presentation a little bit easier, though, now that that part of it's been approved. So I recognize that that's not a simple task, nor one that any of us take lightly, so I appreciated that discussion. This is the annual public hearing on the budget. It has been noticed appropriately 10 days ago as required by the city charter. Unlike the last discussion that we just had, this is a very strictly governed process to approve the annual budget. The budget is due to the City Council on April 1st, which we did deliver it that day. In mid-April, according to the charter, we need to have a budget public hearing, which we are doing tonight as required. After May 15th, but before the end of the month, for May, the City Council does need to adopt the budget by ordinance. So there's a copy of that ordinance that we put in the budget every year. There's also a copy in the action that you'll take later tonight to introduce that ordinance and set that next public hearing for the actual ordinance adoption for May 18th. So you'll be able to see that part again. Staff did begin work on the budget way back, at least in January. So we've been looking at it for quite some time. I know you've had it for a couple weeks, and hopefully been able to spend a little bit of time in it. And we've had a couple of work sessions on it. So I'm just going to briefly highlight some of the things that I would take away from the budget and want you to specifically know and the public to know. And then again, I'll look forward to the questions after this. To summarize the budget from a high level, the budget does take effect July 1, 2015, covers the fiscal year ending June 30, 2016. The overall budget for all funds, departments, and activities is $18,365,400. That is up 7.3% overall, which sounds fairly big, but I want to be quick to point out that really probably all of that, if not the lion's share of that, is directly attributable to capital projects, and specifically this year for construction. And so we'll talk about that a little bit here as we go through. By fund, you see the major funds that you're used to hearing about. The general fund barely changed, up $9,500. The water and sewer fund is up just over $100,000. The major and local street fund, those changed really based on construction activities, so those can kind of go up and down each year depending on any construction that we're going to do in those funds. The components units that we report in the budget basically are for our authorities that we have that we are responsible for, the DDA, LDFA, Brownfield Redevelopment Authority. And then just some other funds, including like capital projects funds. That's going to be the bulk of what you see in the other funds category. The fiscal year 2016 revenue highlights. This is kind of the side of it that I think is responsible for a lot of the challenges that we've been having over the last few years. Primarily, you see the trend of our taxable value over the last, really since 2009, which is when our taxable value peaked, and it went down for the next 5 consecutive years, ticked back up slightly this year, but as you'll see as we go through here, it barely stabilized and ticked back up just slightly. Property taxes do represent 25% of the total budget for the city, and that's of the 18 million. They do represent 64% of the general fund. So the losses that we've had in our taxable value since 2009 represent really about $300,000 in annual revenue over the last 6 years. To put that into a little bit more of a number perspective, you can see here that the change from the 2009 tax roll year to the 2015 tax roll year, which is where our revenues for this budget are derived. Our assessed value went down 41.7 million, which is almost 14% that we've lost of our taxable value. That assessed value has crept back up more than what the taxable value did. I think last year we talked about having lost, $100 million of property value in our community. So that's recovered somewhat for the year. From a taxable value perspective, at our peak in 2009, our total taxable value was $261,700,000, and for this year it's $243,000,000, about $600,000. So we've again lost $18 million in taxable value, which on the chart at the bottom you can see how that loss has impacted our tax revenues, which again, 25% of our total budget, 64% of our general fund budget. Much of this loss that you see below of $252,000 in operating levy, $47,000 in the Act 45 levy, much of that has been felt directly in the general fund. One of the big questions this year, and we talked a lot about this at the first work session that we've had, is how the recent tax reform is going to impact our annual revenues. And put a question mark here. There's just still a lot of unanswered questions from our perspective, and so we're working with Joe. He's been real helpful in with his contacts at the state, but there's just a lot of question on what will happen. How much of our revenue lost from personal property will be reimbursed through the the new mechanism that's in place at the state level. I will tell you, one of the things that makes me very anxious about this whole process is how real property and personal property have kind of worked together over the last few years and what that's looked like for our taxable value. If you look at the chart here, you can see the kind of the diamond there right in the middle of the chart, and that's very interesting, I think, to kind of explore and dig into at least a little bit what that means from our revenue perspective. The red line is the change annually in personal property tax values. The blue line that goes down is the annual change in real property values. And so you can see, interestingly, in the worst years for the taxable value and real property, we saw a lot of investment in personal property. I think if you were an economist, you would say, leading indicators of economic recovery are what the industries are doing as far as investing in new equipment, new lines, new raw materials, things like that. While property values for a tax roll really are a lagging indicator of what just happened economically. So you can really see that play out here. What I want to point out is the green dotted line that's kind of in the middle. So when you combine the change year over year in real property and the change year over year in personal property, combined, the change in the total tax roll was the green dotted line. So you can see really in the difficult times for the tax roll perspective, it was that investment in personal property really that kept us from diving even farther down into that blue trough there. What that really indicates to me, when you eliminate personal property tax from your tax roll, I think it's going to make it a lot more volatile. You can see, had it not been for that investment in personal property in those lean years, we would have lost $30 million in taxable value. And so that's another $150,000, $160,000 year over year in revenue that can go down a lot faster than it can go up because of the Proposal A factor that we just talked about a few minutes ago. So I'm nervous about the volatility that the tax reform may present us year over year. Once the tax roll is set and the budget is developed, you have a pretty good picture of what your one-year revenues are going to be. So for this budget, we're pretty much set knowing our revenues. That's an advantage, but that reform has me anxious for those years coming up. As far as millage rates go, the city at this point levies on all properties two millages. Our city operating millage, which is 13.9473 mills, and our police and fire retirement levy, which is 2.6 mills, which both of those have been at that same level for a number of years, and neither is proposed to change. We do also levy only on properties within the downtown district, an additional millage of, or additional levy of 1.9548 mills. So again, that revenue from that millage is restricted to spending on activities and things that benefit that downtown district. I always again want to point out that a portion of these levies are captured by our several authorities, the LDFA, the DDA, and the Brownfield. These captures amount to $90,000 of our operating revenue and $17,000 of our retirement millage. So that's an important consideration, and just a reminder that that those authorities do capture those tax dollars. Another little bit on revenue, and that deals with the revenues that we receive from the state of Michigan. Comes in a couple of different forms. The first one is state shared revenue. This is revenue from the constitutional revenue sharing, also from the city, village, and township revenue sharing, formerly EVIP, formerly statutory revenue sharing. It is now called the city, village, and township revenue sharing. That's the one that the Michigan legislature has a little more control over. You get a little more nervous about that one each year. You can see on the chart on this slide that this is another area where we've experienced some hits. Since 2001, which is our peak, we're down over $300,000 in what we received in 2001 versus what we're projecting for this year. So it was about $1.3 million back in 2001, and for this budget, we're looking at about $975,000 between the constitutional and the CVTRS is the acronym for what was formerly the statutory portion. The motor vehicle highway funds, this is money from basically Act 51 money, or from the gas taxes essentially. This amount brings in $783,000. That's combined for the major street and the local street fund. 73% of that is for major street activities. 27% goes to local street activities, which is always interesting because 40 of our 60 miles are local and 20 of our 60 miles are major. So fortunately, we're able to transfer a little bit from the major street to the local street. We do that each year. That's restricted to, I think, 25% of the major street portion, which we contribute a little bit less than that. Again, interesting to point out, to me anyways, in 2005, we received $745,000 in motor vehicle highway funds, and for next year, we're projecting $783,000. So in 10 years, it's gone up, less than $40,000. So I think just another example of why things are challenging from a revenue perspective. Just one more on the revenue. I won't belabor the water rates. We've talked about that. Again, we have been able to keep those down. Refinancing, we're getting some additional leachate treatment. An important thing that wasn't mentioned really is we're required to meet certain debt covenants based on our revenue bond issues where we've pledged these revenues to cover debt service. We're required to keep a certain debt service coverage ratio is the official term. We've maintained that each year. In 2013, we dipped about 0.04 percentage points below the coverage ratio, which is pretty insignificant. You're talking probably a few $1,000s, either in more revenue or less expense would have kept us there. And I got a call and had to spend some time on the phone with the owner of some of the bonds, saying, why were you below, and what are you doing to keep from being below in the future? So it was a pretty insignificant dip, but you know, we're not far above the line of that requirement. And so part of the justification and the need to watch our revenue, control our spending, is to make sure we're meeting those promises that we've made to our debt holders. The solid waste, again, we talked about it. I don't like to throw out too many of these numbers yet. It is not set in stone. I contacted our hauler to try and just get confirmation that he would concur at least with the numbers that have been released. Haven't heard back yet, but it's looking like it could go down, you know, up to 57 cents per month, 43 cents on the solid waste, and another 14 cents. And these again are just the contractual adjustments. So again, want to emphasize that these are estimates, and until we get a letter of confirmation from the hauler, we won't know for sure. And again, we'll be sure to report back on where these rates get locked in at before the end of the year. To highlight some of our on the other side of the equation, 40% of our total costs are represented from employment. This 40% is actually a little bit lower than it is some years, and again, based on the level of construction and capital investment that you're making. As that kicks the budget up a little bit, these costs stay a little bit more flat, and so the overall percentage of your budget goes down. We do remain, again, at 75 employees, which is you know, the lowest level it's been for a long, long time. Wages represent $3.7 million of that. That's up slightly. If you remember, we did settle a couple of the collective bargaining agreements over the last couple years, and those were typically about a 3% over the life of the contract. So a couple of those are impacted in the slight increase in the wage side. We did save a little bit of money on the benefits side, and that was through some changes we've made on health insurance primarily. We do offer two plans now. One is substantially less expensive, both for the employer and the employee. We've had a few more people take advantage of that, and then made a couple of tweaks on the employer side of the plan to help control our costs as well. So we're having some success on that side at least. The current budget does propose no change again in total full-time employment at 75. Compensation changes. This budget could accommodate a slight increase in the non-union side. The steelworkers for this year will not go up again. This is year 3 of the contract, and they were given their basically 3.5% at one time. So that was as of whenever we settled the contract, which I don't remember exactly. It was about a year and a half ago or something like that we settled that, and that was all at one time. So there's no additional increase for this year. We are about to begin negotiating with our fire union. That contract expires June 30, and so there's nothing to report on that. And on the police side, it's 1% year 2 out of the 3 years of their contract. Some of the capital projects, you've already seen this list of streets. It's the same list that was on the CIP, but again, these are actually in the budget, and we are looking at about a $2 million proposed issuance of bonds to cover probably years 1 and 2 for sure of the street projects that are a part of the capital improvement program. Other projects on the capital side that you'll see in the budget, police patrol vehicle, some restroom facilities in the fire department, plow truck, continuing with our street sign replacement in the major and local street funds, replacing the old with the nice blue signs that you see on the picture here. The well field, phase 2, continuation, Rotary Pavilion, place plans, computer. I've said all this stuff before, but just want to highlight it again as this is stuff that's actually proposed for funding and appropriation. Water tower, again, what are we going to do to make that fun? And then a couple of service trucks as well that have made it into the budget for appropriation. Again, that's the stuff that I wanted to highlight for you. I'm sure you have questions. This budget is available tomorrow. It'll be on our website, and you can go to that link for viewing the budget. There's a hard copy that will be available here at City Office, and this week too we'll get a copy to the library if there are those in the public that frequent the library and want to ask for a copy of our budget. We've done that for a lot of years as well. So want to get access, again, please feel free to stop in, to call us. I'd be happy to sit down or talk on the phone with anyone. Had a nice conversation with Mrs. Williams today and appreciated that conversation. And so we're always willing to talk and do that as well. The budget will be considered for adoption, again, May 18th. There is no action tonight. I'm happy to answer questions. No action for council tonight, but there will be an ordinance to pass that night. So there's, again, a month to receive some comments. If council or anyone else would wish to see anything changed and adjusted in the budget, there's time to do that right up until you take the vote on the budget on May 18th. And so that's required to be a 4/5 vote, and we'll talk about it at that point. And again, I'll sit down and happy to answer any questions that anybody may have.
Thank you, Owen. Okay, that takes us then to the city manager's report.
This is the public hearing.
Do we have to open the floor for public comments, even though there's no action this evening? Okay, I apologize. Then at this time, we will open the floor for public comment as it relates to the public hearing for the 2015 and 2016 annual operating budget.
Terry Harvey, I'd already made my comments previously, and I feel that you should look at some of the stuff in there before you approve this year's.
Okay, thank you. Okay, seeing no one else, we will close public comment. And so do we continue with council discussion at this point too?
Yes, it would be appropriate if there's any.
All right, thank you. Okay, if there's no discussion, we will then close the public hearing. Move on.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. If it is okay with members of council, I'd like to move item B under the manager's report up. One, we do have a member here waiting very patiently to provide an update to the city. Thank you. And before we have Progressive A&E come forward with a conversation regarding lake management, I just wanted to also mention in the background, back at the front counter, I do have Todd Kieway here. Todd, who is our HR generalist, so happens to have a background in biology as well as human resources. And previously, worked for a company doing lake management type work. He has some great experience in that field. And as we say goodbye to Jerry Adams, our Community Development Director, who will be retiring in approximately 1 month from now, who's currently been the staff lead on this project, Todd is going to be taking over as the main staff contact. And I just wanted to publicly mention that this evening and invite him to come in and sit at the side table there. Jerry, if you would like to introduce Tony.
Sure, thank you. With us tonight is Tony Groves. Tony is with Progressive AE, and Tony leads the Lake Management Division of Progressive AE. And Progressive has been with the city now, working on Lake Cadillac, doing lake management efforts, particularly with respect to the control of invasive species since about 2005, 2006. And annually, Progressive develops a report, which is in your packet, that essentially covers or highlights the success or failures of the invasive species management program for the preceding or the last year's season. And I've asked him if he would come and introduce himself and just go through. He's got about 50 or 60 slides, I believe. I'm kidding. He has about 7 or 8 slides that he'll go through, and he'll just highlight last year or last season's program. And if you have any questions, this is the time to ask it.
All right. Well, thanks, Sherry. 9 slides, no numbers. All right.
Yay!
I thought you'd appreciate that. As Jerry said, I've worked on the project since it started back in 2005, and I'm a biologist by training. I head up the Water Resources Group at Progressive, and in my line of work, I get to see a lot of water. I get to work on lakes all over the state, so I have a really nice job. And I've enjoyed the Lake Cadillac project. It's been a very successful one, and it's been, it's a community project, and you guys are really unique in that your project's actually funded through a millage. You're one of the only communities in the state I'm aware of that's funding their invasive species control project that way. But if I could get to the next slide. The project, when we started back in 2005, Lake Cadillac was infested with about 300 acres of a plant called Eurasian milfoil. And as the name implies, Eurasian, it's not a plant that's native to the United States or Michigan. It was introduced from Europe and Asia back around 1940s, found its way into Michigan in the 1960s and 70s. And within a few years, it spread, and by the 1980s it was found in every county in the state. So this plant, it's kind of, if you look at the graphic, it's kind of got like a feather-like appearance to the leaves. It's what we call a canopy-forming plant. It grows to the surface, forms a dense canopy. It's very difficult to navigate through. It tends to cause problems with the fishery. It smothers out or shades out other beneficial plants. It also has the ability to spread by what's called vegetative propagation. And by that I mean little pieces will break off. Those little pieces will actually form new plants. So once you get it in the lake, oftentimes it's introduced around an access site. It'll kind of ring the access sites as the boats go through, the propellers chop it up, and before you know it, it's everywhere. So as I said, when we started, we had about 300 acres in the lake. And if we go to the next slide. Just to complicate things farther, the Eurasian milfoil, which was dominant in the lake, has begun to hybridize with native milfoil plants. There's about a half dozen different types of native milfoil. The native milfoil plants tend not to be problematic. There's one in particular called northern milfoil, which is the most common. The Eurasian milfoils hybridize with this native plant, and the hybrid milfoil tends to be more aggressive growing than the Eurasian milfoil. It also tends to be more difficult to treat. It shows some tolerance to herbicide treatments. Now in sampling around the state, we've done a lot of work with Grand Valley State University where they've really looked at this whole hybrid milfoil issue. We sampled 50 lakes over the past 2 years, and in 25 of them, or 50% of them, we had hybrid milfoil. And as luck would have it, in Lake Cadillac, we took 6 samples last year. We had them genetically analyzed. They extracted DNA, and they can look at it and tell the difference between the hybrid and the purebred. And all 6 were hybrid milfoil. Now, that's not to say it's the end of the world. The hybrid in Lake Cadillac thus far has not been that difficult to manage. It responds pretty much like the Eurasian does. We've had to dose up a little bit higher, but we did the genetic testing to see if we had the strain in there, and now that we do and we know it, we can plan accordingly. So I don't think it's going to be a game changer, but it is kind of an evolution in this plant, and it does change the way we do things and sometimes the timing of treatment or the dose of treatment. Now, the way it works is my office, a biologist from my office, goes out on the lake several times a year. We start early in the season, typically in May. We'll survey the entire lake, and the map on the bottom there, you'll notice there's little points along the map. Those are GPS reference points, what we call waypoints. So when we're on the water, what we do, the biologist goes out, we throw a rake overboard, pull it on board, and we identify very specifically where these milfoil beds are. And then we note it on the map, so we have GPS reference points, and we map out the plant beds. Now, we provide that map to the applicator. It's a firm called PLM Lake and Land Management. They've worked on the lake for several years. They've served us well. They also are GPS enabled, so they know exactly where to go to do the treatments. So we go out early, identify where the plants are, provide the map to the applicator. Applicator goes out and does the treatment, and then we come back out, do an inspection to see how the treatments were, if they were successful or not, if retreatment's required, identify any new infestations, and we repeat the process again. So this is done each year. Usually we do anywhere from 3 to 5 surveys of the lake each year, looking both for exotic plants, and we also map out all the different plants in the lake a couple times a year. And next slide, if I could. Well, I'll just talk a little about the treatments themselves. When the treatments are done, there's basically 2 types of herbicides. There's what we call contact herbicides and systemic herbicides. The systemic herbicides are slow acting, but they're species selective. They only kill certain plants. The vast majority of treatments that are done on Lake Cadillac are done with systemic herbicides because they're selective. We can kind of target, get the milfoil, leave the good plants, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Contact herbicides work quickly, but they don't discriminate. They kill the good, the bad, the ugly. They're broad spectrum herbicides. So we try to use the systemic herbicides. They're a little bit more slow acting, but they move down to the roots. In theory, they kill the entire plant. All the permits or all the treatments that are done under a DEQ permit, our applicator each year has to apply to the DEQ to get a permit. The state tells you what you can use, where you can use it, and what dose rates are allowed. There's also certain restrictions when the lake's treated. There's a 24-hour swimming restriction, and we always make sure those swimming restrictions don't apply on holidays or weekends. There's no fishing restrictions anymore with the new herbicides, which is great. And occasionally there's an irrigation restriction that may run a couple of weeks. And the time of treatment, they'll post the shoreline within 100 feet of any area that they treated, and they'll have a sign that says if there's a restriction in play, it tells the property owner what it is. So that really hasn't been much of a problem on Lake Cadillac. And that's probably good for this. Now, this is just an overview of the history since we started in 2006, and the first year of treatment was 180 acres. Now, it varies a little bit year to year. Sometimes the weather will dictate. Last winter, we had a real harsh winter. As you might recall, I think it was the 5th coldest winter on record. But if we look at where we started at 180 acres and where we were in 2014, we were just less than half that. So we've had good success with the project, and the key to it is to be vigilant and to stay on top of it. And the city's enabled that to happen by having my office out, a biologist out that can survey regularly, and then responding quickly to the infestation. We can get our applicator out there and get the job done, and that's really kept it in check. And the project, when it started out, it was done through special assessment. We had a 3-year budget. We were able to go 5 years with that. The millage, we thought we'd go 3 years. We're in the 4th year now, may even get a 5th year out of it. So by staying on top of it, it's become very, very cost effective, and we've been able to stretch that budget. And I know we're good for this year. We might even be able to go another full season without the need to look at a source of revenue to finance the project. Now, with plant control, one of the things I really want to emphasize with folks is that we're focusing just on these exotic species, the plants that shouldn't be there, the ones that disrupt the system and get the system out of balance. And a lot of times I'll get calls from folks saying, hey, the guys are out here, but I still have plants in front of my house or my cottage. And we explain to them that we're not trying to make a swimming pool out of the lake. It's a lake, and the plants are a key part of the ecosystem. They're extremely important to the fishery. Lake Cadillac has an excellent diversity of native plants. You have 8 different species of pondweeds, and all those are excellent cover for fish. They help to stabilize the bottom. So they're extremely important to the lake. So what we try to do is to strike the balance where we get this exotic nuisance species, keep that under control, but keep the beneficial native plants. And each year when we do our surveys to look at the exotic species, we do 2 full lake surveys, and we use a methodology that DEQ developed where we map out all the vegetation in the lake. And we do that each year, so we have a record now year to year of not only what's been treated, but also we have a good record of what's in the lake with respect to the good plants as well. And again, we want to strike a balance, and thus far we've been able to do that. We've got the good plants there, but we've got these nuisance plants that grow to the surface and basically impede navigation and make it difficult to fish. We've got those plants pretty much under control. So in wrapping up, Jerry indicated that in the report, in your packet is a copy of our report. It goes into quite a bit more detail about the specifics of the project. We've also done sampling of the lake. It really is not part of the program, but a couple years back, the question came up about the water quality in Lake Cadillac. We've done sampling of the lake. We've also reviewed historical data. It's all in the report. Overall, the water quality in Lake Cadillac is quite good. It's an excellent fishing lake. It's got healthy dissolved oxygen levels. The nutrient levels aren't excessively high. Occasionally we get a little algae growth in the lake, but it's a seasonal thing, and overall, though, the water quality is quite good. Another thing we looked at as part of the project early on was zebra mussels. When we just started this, when the millage was enacted, that was about the time the zebra mussels were first observed in Lake Cadillac. They've since migrated to Lake Mitchell. Zebra mussels, as you probably read in the paper, in some lakes they can be real disruptive. When you just get the introduction of the things, the population just increases exponentially. So you get an explosion in the population, and you see zebra mussels on about every hard surface. You'll see these zebra mussels. They do a real number on the native clams because they cover the shells, and the clams oftentimes die off. They'll get on boat lifts. They'll get on boats that are sitting in the water. They'll just cover the bottom. They're filter feeders, so the water gets clear, but what they leave behind is the bad algae. They feed on algae, but they leave the blue-green algae, and that's the stuff that forms the scums on the surface. So they can really disrupt the system and the food chain if they persist. Now, what we found in Michigan is that the water appears to be too warm for these zebra mussels to really sustain themselves. So we get that initial infestation in a lake. There's about 250 plus lakes infested. You get a real increase in the population, then that population kind of collapsed. And now we've got a remnant population that's not near as problematic. So while we still have them in the lake, it doesn't look like they're going to be a real problem in terms of the long-term ecology of the lake. A little different in the Big Lake, or the Great Lakes now. The zebra mussels have kind of waned as well in the Big Lakes, but now they have the quagga mussels. Those are the ones that are out deep, and they're really causing problems with the salmon fishery. But we don't have the quagga mussels in the inland lakes at this point. So, and just in wrapping up, I mentioned that you do have a report in the packet, and it gets into a lot more detail, not only about the history of the project, but what goes on year to year. And we also have an informational website called Michigan Lake Info. This is not a company website, but it's just information about lake ecology, biology, water quality, aquatic plants. And if you have an interest in this stuff, I recommend you visit the website. It's called Michigan Lake Info. And that has just a ton of information. It's in PDF format, so you can download it and just have it for general information. So Jerry said I was going to go quick on this. 9 slides, not too bad. So if you have any questions about the project, I'd be happy to answer them.
One quick question. I know initially this was part of the treatment, was the weevils. Is there any way to know if there's still a population of weevils that are operating, or are they pretty much disappeared in Lake Cadillac?
They pretty much run their course. Weevils, it's a little organism that feeds only on Eurasian milfoil. And and this is an indigenous species. In other words, they're already here. The weevils have always been here. And that kind of begged the question, if they're already here, why do we have so much Eurasian milfoil? Somebody got the idea that if we can stock these things and boost that population, we can control the milfoil. And that was the idea, and we stocked, I think 30 or 40,000 of these things, maybe more, in the first few years of the program. But what we found was there are some confounding factors. Fish prey on the things. They become fish food. And in lakes where we have real robust sunfish populations, like we do in Lake Cadillac and Lake Mitchell, they'll keep that weevil population in check. And so what happens is, even though you can stock them and bolster the population, and they'll feed on the milfoil, and when they feed on the milfoil would fall over in the water column. It would lose buoyancy. But we found over time is that population wouldn't be sustained at a high enough level to make it worthwhile. And the things were expensive. It was about $1 a bug. So when you stock 30,000, you spent $30,000. So the company that marketed those was actually Culturing. There's only one company. They have since ceased operation, and they're no longer. There's a few projects we have in Michigan that have stuck with them and invested a lot, but the results have been extremely variable.
Thank you.
I notice you use mostly the systematic herbicides, but you also use some of the contact. According to your report, where do you use contact herbicides?
Sometimes near shore, if it's late in the season, because the systemics take about 4 to 6 weeks to work. So you do the application, you got to wait a month for the plants to die back. So later in the season, sometimes you use a contact herbicide because it'll work quicker. And the contact herbicides have very, very short irrigation restrictions, where the systemic herbicides can have a several week irrigation restriction. So for treating up near shore, we'd rather have a short, it's usually only a few acres of contact herbicides, but you'll have a much shorter restriction, because that irrigation restriction is not a big deal in May, but come August, it can be a big deal with some folks. So we try to balance it that way.
It's a good report.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for your patience.
All right. Not a problem.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. This next item is a request with respect to recommendation regarding manhole rehabilitation. In the current fiscal year 15 budget, the Water and Sewer Fund includes appropriation for $25,000 for manhole rehabilitation and reconstruction. This is to essentially prolong the structural integrity of up to 10 existing manholes by lining them with the new interior coating. Bids were solicited. When comparing the specifications for each of the bids received, it was determined that the higher tensile strength for the rehabilitation of the manholes that can be provided through R&A Environmental Rehab, the second to the lowest bidder, would be the recommended product to go with. The lowest bidder, company called Advanced Rehabilitation Technology, did have a good product, that would be more appropriate to use for atmospheric problems, not structural problems. And therefore, the recommendation this evening would be to go with R&A Environmental Rehab in the amount of $23,785. Funds are available current Water and Sewer Fund for that project.
I'll make a motion to award the contract for manhole rehabilitation, reconstruction to R&A Environmental in the amount of $23,785.
Support?
Sandy, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Spolman,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Melama,
Yes.
Shippers?
Yes.
Mayor Folkins?
Yes. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. This next item is to request that we set a public hearing for May 18th, 2015 to consider the approval of the 2015 through 2020 City and Cadillac Area Public Schools Community Recreation Plan. The plan was previously provided to City Council, and again, we're only looking at setting the public hearing this evening for May 18th, 2015. At that time, we'll have a presentation on the plan itself.
When was the plan presented to the city council?
The plan was emailed and, excuse me, I know it was in your mailbox, but I think it may have been emailed as well a couple of months ago. And I can get you another copy if you need it.
Or no, it was in the mailbox.
Wasn't it? Okay. I'm sure I have it then. I just come.
Yeah, I know I have a copy electronically. I think it may have only been provided in hard copy because of its volume to council a while back. But if you need a copy, just let me know.
All right, thanks. I'll make a motion to set a public hearing for May 18th to consider approval of the 2015 to 2020 City CAPS Community Recreation Plan.
Support.
Sandy, could we have roll call, please?
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Melama?
Yes.
Shippers?
Yes.
Spolman?
Yes.
Mayor Folkins?
Yes. Motion carries.
Thank you. This last item is the request to adopt a resolution that will introduce an ordinance establishing our General Appropriations Act for fiscal year 2016 and the setting of the public hearing accordingly for May 18th, 2015.
Is that kind of, I know, is that basically, we had the public hearing tonight, and then is that just for further input that takes place during the month if any of the public wants to come? Is that the reason for a second public hearing?
Well, really, it's I'm not sure if it would be required or if we could actually introduce the ordinance tonight as part of the public hearing. But typically, because the charter requires a special public hearing for the adoption of the budget and also requires a public hearing for the adoption of an ordinance, we've done this twice. So that second one really is kind of been a formality. But again, if there are some things that happen over the course of the next 4 weeks, we'd be happy to summarize those as part of another just brief update on what the final version of the budget looks like. So that's the purpose for the two.
I'll make a motion to adopt a resolution to introduce an ordinance establishing the General Appropriations Act for fiscal year 2016 and set a public hearing for May 18.
Support.
Sandy, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Melama?
Yes.
Shippers?
Yes.
Spolman?
Yes.
Stevens?
Yes.
Mayor Folkins?
Yes. Motion carries.
Moving on into the next section, Mayor, members of the City Council, this next item is the request to adopt a resolution amending the General Appropriations Act for fiscal year 2015. And so as we were just talking about, the fact that we're setting a budget here is the opportunity where we're amending our current year budget. Norman, if you could walk us through the items that we're looking at, that'd be great.
Sure. This is, it's 6 pages. I'll try and talk through it in a way that makes it understandable as to the purpose of some of these items, and again, happy to answer any questions that you have. So we'll just start from the top. In the general fund, we did add, I know the last time that we did a budget amendment, we talked about just adding a little bit of detail on where these funds would come.
This is what's called Exhibit A in our packet.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Yep. Talking about Exhibit A. Requesting to approve the use of $26,800 in additional reserves, and then $35,000 from our sick and vacation reserve to fund some retirement payouts that we'll talk about in a second. In the City Council Department, we've had a lot of things that we've had to to publish in the newspaper related to ordinances, proceedings, special meetings, all kinds of things. So we're going to exceed the budget in that publication line, and so asking for an appropriation of additional $2,000 for that. In the clerk treasurer line, a couple of things just to tweak the salaries and wages a little bit based on a certification that was achieved and a step increase. And then the bad debt expense is a little bit of a misnomer. That's a refunds based on typically tax tribunal details. And so anytime it's not a refund of the current year tax levy, you can't just reduce your revenue, you have to expense it. So over the last 10 years or so, that line has ranged anywhere from, $750 to $36,000, up to $105,000 one year. But I think that was when we returned some captured dollars is what I remember on that. But it will exceed it, and this is kind of one of the higher years. And really, we don't control the timing on when those tax tribunal decisions come down, but we do have to issue the refunds in a timely fashion. We're up to about 21,000 right now that we've had to issue in refunds. I don't think we'll get to 27, but I just wanted to have a little bit of cushion just in case something else comes down. Under the elections, we do have to have the election here in May for the state ballot item. I do want to point out, we typically anticipate about $7,000 per election. The bulk of this one should be able to be refunded by the state. So I think while we do need to appropriate some additional funds, most of that that we incur for this election, and we did confirm that with the county clerk, we should get most of those funds back, but we do have to appropriate it from the expense side. Page 2, in the planning and zoning, this is where we bid our sad farewell to Mr. Adams, and there's just some retirement final benefit payouts on that are based on the city administrative policy. And then just a little bit of addition as there will be a little bit of overlap for training purposes, and then some small amounts of contractual services that were incurred over the year for some help with some of the surveying work as part of lot splits or some other work that's been done. The last item in the parks. This is you're going to see this in a couple of spots. The DPW did some extra work in the lakefront park in conjunction with the playground project. So basically what we're doing is transferring some wages and equipment rental budget that was appropriated in the local street fund, where it looks like we won't use that because they spent more time working in the general fund. So we're going to match this addition for the Parks Department of $20,000 appropriation. That will be a wash to the general fund because we're going to decrease our contribution to the local street fund, since the local street fund won't be incurring these maintenance costs. So we'll also visit this in the on the local street fund in just a second, but that's what that parks and the transfer to other funds is where you see the transfer to the local street fund being reduced. In the major street fund, under the administrative department, this is just cleaning up some funds that were a part of the payout for the retirement of the former street superintendent. On to page 3. In the local street fund, on the revenue side, you'll see an additional appropriation from the state of Michigan. That's just recognizing the fact there was a special act passed as part of the state's current fiscal year that appropriated some additional money to locals for street maintenance. And so the local street fund is going to see some additional funds for that. And then you see the reduction in the contribution from the general fund matching the reduction on the general fund side. And the expenditures for the local street fund, no net increase or no net change. Basically, we're adding funds for the same retirement costs of the street superintendent, and then reducing the budget for local street forestry, which is where that budget appropriation was transferred essentially to the parks system. But because that's one fund to another, that's got to be approved by council. Page 4, the Capital Projects Trust Fund, requesting the use of some of these reserves that are on hand to make a transfer to the Lakefront Park Playground Fund. The city did agree to make a $15,000 grant match and had planned to do some of that with the work done by the DPW and the Parks Department, but they did quite a bit of extra work in moving sidewalks and replacing some sidewalks and adding some a handicap accessible sidewalk from the parking lot, which I think was a great improvement. But because of that, we're going to need to ask for an additional appropriation. The request is to use $15,000 from our Capital Projects Trust Fund. I think there's about $590,000 or so still remaining in there, and these are the types of projects that we've utilized that fund for. So that transfer to fund the local match would be from the Capital Projects Trust Fund. Finally, the rest of the amendment deals with the water and sewer fund, and it's fairly substantial, but it relates to just a couple of fairly simple categories of costs. Number one, the revenue side, the leachate treatment, we've continued to receive well above what we've budgeted for leachate, and that's been intentional as we've tried to, since we don't really know the future of what those revenues will be. We've talked before as part of the budget meetings about weaning ourselves kind of off reliance upon that revenue, but that's one of those areas that's provided some funds in excess of what we've budgeted. So we're just recognizing that fact as we look at what the net impact of these other costs will be. Sale of surplus material was pretty high this year, and that's mainly because we sold our old VATCon truck and a couple of other pieces of equipment that were replaced. We're using the online auction site to do that, and so that's helping generate some pretty good funds when we need to sell that. The revenue from the Wexford County DPW has been a little bit higher than what we budgeted, so we're recognizing that fact. And then based on what we need to amend into the budget, it's probably going to cause us to use about $177,000 in funds on hand. As you'll see in a minute, that's primarily matched with costs related to the recent issues with the freezing. On the expense side in the water and sewer fund, we are asking for an additional appropriation for some legal costs. The fund has incurred about $5,700 related to the Boersma case. It's paying a portion of the costs related to the annexation. So it's basically splitting that, recognizing that it'll have a positive effect on that fund when that goes through. That was about $17,000. Some environmental things where we were doing some quite a bit of work with our discharge, our NPDES permit. That was about $6,900. And then if you remember, we've worked on the cross connection ordinance that we had to change. And some other water and sewer issues. A lot of the next few lines deal with utilities, in this case meaning electric and gas. We've had a pretty substantial increase in our electric costs over the last 2 years that we're primarily feeling this year. So the fund pays for those costs in several different departments, so secondary treatment. Overall, I'll say here at the beginning, the utilities are going up about $140,000, which I think is a conservative high estimate that'll make sure we end up okay for the budget. Tertiary treatment, sludge treatment, these are all various stages of the treatment process out at the plant. The sludge treatment, there towards the top of page 5, that's the injection contract is to haul our, the solids out there, for lack of a better term, the sludge, and inject it into the farmers' fields. And that's just really a timing thing and a process thing, not knowing how much. Typically, we haven't had to spend this much, but we had to do already an extra hauling, and we anticipate a little bit more before the end of the year. So that's a pretty dramatic increase, but again, that's it's difficult to predict, and we really haven't been in this kind of situation before. Again, a couple of departments that need some additional appropriations for utilities. That takes us to the end of page 5 and page 6. Meter operations, operating supplies is proposed to go up by $44,000. This is the issue that we talked about with a lot of our radios basically dying on our MXUs on our radio read meters that are dying, and you know, those are 10 or more years old, a minimum of 10 years old, and so we're having to make sure we keep meters at these houses. The last 2 sections are related to the thawing, or the freezing, and the total amendment to costs when you combine the salaries, which is primarily the overtime that the guys have had to spend on doing that work, the related fringes, operating supplies, contractual services and repairs and maintenance. So we're talking pipes, digging up the streets, burying the pipes, installing the pipes, burying the pipes, thawing lines, both ours and you know, some of these lines that may have happened prior to when the run water notice went out. And then again, that's plenty of money we anticipate to repave the streets over in those sections that had to be dug up. So it's $158,500 total, which they tell me is again pretty high. Costs are just starting to trickle in for some of those services. We've paid for some pipe. We got a couple of bills from contractor that we used, and we have paid some of the overtime out. But we still will have to. We're going to bid out the repaving, and that won't be able to be done until you know, they're making asphalt and ready to put it down. So that's pretty lengthy. I apologize for that. Again, it's getting to the time of the year where we're having to watch this stuff pretty close, and frankly, it's been difficult. And that week of the utilities issues was really challenging. You know, both for the guys, you know, especially. It was worse for them, I'll tell you, but you know, driving out there and around and seeing these massive holes and pipes and contractors and dump trucks and heavy equipment, and you know, I'm just, you know, pulling my hair out going, how in the world are we gonna afford this? So this looks like this will be plenty, and as costs continue to trickle in, we'll, you know, certainly report back on kind of what the final tally was. So that's it. Sorry for that. Ready for your questions.
I think we're all too tired.
Yeah, it's a lot to digest. I'm sorry.
It's been a long night.
Are we at the point where we can ask? Or
Yeah.
I know we go a month ago, we did our second amendment. That was the one, and I specifically asked about on the legal side of the question, and that I didn't have that email that had come out, so I wasn't able to reference the numbers until after, and then indicated here that some of those costs occurred through the utilities. And so I didn't address this real strongly because I didn't know the numbers until after. But, I mean, we only had budgeted $10,000 in the utilities to do these fees. I'm assuming we're already over that $10,000. We were already over our budgeted amount for the regular legal fees. Quite a bit. I had addressed the concern because the last couple of years we've talked about we need to have these come to us so we can appropriate funds correctly before the expenses, and we kept saying we were going to do this, that Mr. Petra would let us know and we would appropriate them prior to spending them. And now I see we only had additional $10,000 this fund's over. When we take the two combined, we were quite a bit over in spending funds prior to us having them. And this is not what we planned on happening. And when I say all this, this is, I want to credit, this has nothing to do with the job that Owen's doing in our finance department. I happened to talk to him this week and I could tell the stresses of the budget on him, this current budget specifically, and these extra costs. So this is not a Owen Roberts in his position. This is a council and what we get communicated to, but we're over on the legal. We were then. I didn't have those numbers the last time to show, but we only had 10,000. Most of those costs are over. And we've said this for years that we're not going to do it this way. And that's...
If I can just make a comment, my understanding is that in the general fund, we were not over. That's why we looked at the appropriations amendment at the last council meeting, since we forecasted that we might exceed it. That was the preemptive action that the council took. And forgive me if it wasn't at the last meeting, but when we did the appropriations amendment.
Well, we would have been, I mean, when you take the two, regardless of we were over prior to that. And that this is just verified it by the fact that we only had this much in the utilities. But, you know, I'm only addressing this. I know 5 years ago, we had these issues come up, and a lot of it was pushed at me that it was vendettas and political. But it wasn't. And this is showing that we have to do this correctly. And every year we say we're going to, and we haven't. This is an area when our budget is tight and all these other things, we need to be doing it correctly, and that's all I have to say.
I know I have said repeatedly that if you're going to look at expenses, you need to classify expenses. And that means break these legal fees down as far as what they're for and what areas we're spending how much money on. And I feel that some of the legal expenses has not been brought to council for approval. And so I have a problem with this. I know I've looked at a lot of business statements, and I know if you want to get a handle on your expenditures, you need to classify them. And so you know what you're spending your money on instead of grouping them. And I know that there is somewhat of a breakdown here, but it's certainly not a detailed breakdown. And I've said this for a couple of years. I know.
If I may add, the breakdown the council receives based upon the quarterly financial reporting breaks it down into, what is it, 10 or 11 categories?
Yeah, I think it's 11.
Into 11 different categories, and there really isn't any further breakdown that we can provide beyond.
I also know that there are some legal expenses that we've had that we did not vote on as a council.
The city council votes on the appropriation, not unlike an appropriation for an engineering contract.
I guess
It's okay if we disagree. I'm just explaining that's how it works.
Well, it doesn't work that way. You say it.
Sorry, but it does.
There's two aspects to there's.
Why are you saying it doesn't work that way? Because we overspent?
No, there's two parts to this is my thing I've been on for a long time, but there's two aspects to that contract. One is general counsel, and that's outlined exactly there, that money we're appropriating for them to do those things. There is also the section for special, and I think that's where Councilmember Mellema might be talking about, and that's what I've been addressing too, is those costs, just like if we have monies, we appropriate funds for roads, but that doesn't end our job. We have to approve those costs, and if it's a special cost, and a lot of these become that, it just like we used to do, we should be approving it. And if it's general, that we shouldn't have to do that. We're setting aside monies for general counsel. But any other special cost, if it's over that threshold, we should be. And that's how it used to be done for years. No one ever said we were doing it wrong. And the last couple years, we haven't as much. We have a lot of costs. This is our way to keep it under control. And it's beyond that. It's about the way that the charter lays it out in the Uniform Budgeting Act. And, last year we addressed this, and I think it was all concurred that we all said, yep, we need to know ahead of time. We could go back and review that. We did say that, and it was all concurred that we'll do that in the future. That was our last year and the year prior. So this year, we're just seeing it again, and that's a concern to me.
Owen, did you want to add anything about the appropriation amendment that we did? Was it last month?
Well, at the time that we did the amendment, we were not, overspent on the line item. I guess is the only thing that I would add.
So you're saying through our expenses through March, when you take those line items, that we were under our budget at that time?
For sure in the general fund, yes. In the utilities fund, we were at 26, so we would have been a little over in the utilities fund, but it's a little bit different. You appropriate funds as a fund, in the fund as a whole in the utilities fund. So there's no line item appropriation by the council in the water and sewer fund. If we wanted to take money from, primary treatment and transfer it to secondary treatment, internally as part of that fund, we can do that. So the council at the beginning of the year basically appropriates, $4 million to spend in the utilities fund, and not on a line item by line item basis.
Because we did one thing after our last meeting, we did concur. There's basically the two funds that legal fees come out of.
Two
one
line
is the
items.
general,
Yep.
and then this fund here.
Yep. And again, the utilities fund can only pay costs where the utilities fund would have a benefit or have a stake in that process. As an aside, I would be interested in knowing what kind of breakdown would be, council would be interested in receiving. I have them broke down in far greater detail than what's printed as part of the quarterly report. So I'm just not sure. I try to summarize it to make it kind of understandable, usable. But we can certainly, we have every hour spent by Foster Swift since they started in 2010, I have in spreadsheets by month and category and type and amount, and be happy to work with council, or if someone wants to come in and take a little more in-depth look at what we have in terms of breakdowns, we'd be happy to provide that.
But then I'll reiterate that your reports have been phenomenal. It's an issue more of what, on our end, what's being appropriated and what should be. But your reports have been very, very good, so that's not the issue on that. It's our action of what we're doing.
Again, I think it's important, though, that you hear what the finance director was just commenting on, which is that we're not over. We're not over on your legal line item at such time that the council moved forward and made the appropriations adjustment. I want to say it was in March.
We're not over on the number that we approved that night, or the prior number? Because if you take the prior number that we had budgeted, not what we amended, and you take the legal expenses up through that date, or are you using the number that we appropriated that night and added?
What I'm trying to say is that at the time that the city council made the appropriations amendment back in March to add additional funds to the legal budget was not over budget.
Well, okay, so yeah, you had the quarterly one that was through December. That wasn't probably, but when you added January, February, and March, I would debate that.
So when you asked for the amendment back in March, we weren't over budget at that time, but you were anticipating that we were headed in that direction.
By the end of the fiscal year.
And that's why you asked us for that amendment to make it through the end of the fiscal year. But now we're here a month later and it's being amended again?
Not the general fund budget, the water and sewer fund.
Water and sewer fund.
Which is a different fund.
Okay.
So you had as the number in March of what number in the general fund for legal?
I couldn't tell you the number. Owen, do you have that handy, by any chance?
We amended the budget on March 16th, and
was it 65,000?
We amended it by 65, and I did not have the February or March bill in hand at the time. And so subsequent to that, we've paid $38,000 in addition to what had been spent by March 16th, which we've spent 181 total as of March 31st. So, 38 less than that would have been about 143, I guess. And the appropriation had been 150. So we had probably incurred the costs, at least, another month and a half of costs by then. But, bills in hand and what I knew about at the time was still below the 150.
I feel like we need to, and Councilmember Stevens and I have talked about this somewhat. What I would like to do is to put together a group that would include Marcus and Owen and Councilmember Stevens and myself, if that's okay. And talk about the process and what needs to come before the council and the timing of that, so we all have a very clear understanding. And for my benefit, I'm still in that, phase of I want to understand in years past in April, in years past, where were we? Have we already amended the budget 3 times or 4 times or 5 times? I would like to better understand that. So this scenario here would be a very good opportunity for us to just all sit down, get on the same page, and understand this whole thing right now. Because I'm feeling very strongly. I know that there's certain things that we cannot control, but there's certain things that we can. And I just want to make sure that we're working together as a team, making sure that we're putting those control mechanisms in place.
And that we agree on the control mechanisms, I guess.
Exactly.
I think we're on the same page with that.
Exactly. So we need to have the right people sitting at the table, and so that we don't get in the situation where we're sitting here, you know, not that we're disagreeing with one another, but we have a different understanding. And so I think it's important that we spend time offline and truly understanding and coming to an agreement on what those mechanisms are, so that as a team we are doing a good job of controlling this budget.
In the meantime, we do need 4 votes to do the amendment. I guess I would just kind of implore you for support on that. And as we talk about new procedures or new, you know, communication tools moving forward, you know, I'll do whatever you need, essentially.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
I make a motion to adopt the resolution amending General Appropriations Act for fiscal year 2015 as presented.
Do we have to wait till someone supports it to make a comment? I'll support it, and then I'd like to say something. Do we need like council endorsement or approval or something to have a committee like that set up? Like what the mayor proposed?
Well, I think it's done.
Great, okay. Then I support the...
Okay. Do you have anything else before we? Okay. Sandy, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Shippers?
Yes.
Spolman?
Yes.
Stevens?
No.
Bellema?
No.
Mayor Filkins?
Yes.
May we consider it in another format, I guess, so that the, you know, the rest of the items outside of that one, you know, maybe eliminate that item so that the rest of these things can be approved?
So if we ask for a motion to approve everything except the legal expense?
In the water and sewer fund, yes.
In the water and sewer fund?
That would be what I would propose. If that's the line item that people want to see some more discussion in detail on, you know, happy to provide that. But if we could at least address the rest of the items tonight, that would certainly be helpful.
That would be, that is my concern on that one. So that out and being addressed later would be sufficient.
Okay. All right, so would someone provide that motion restated?
It would be a motion to approve the budget amendment minus the water and sewer fund legal line item.
All right, I will I was seeing if everyone had any other discussion, but I would like to make a motion that we would amend this proposed budget amendment number 3 to eliminate out the, under the water and sewer fund, the expenses for the legal fees, and leave the rest as presented.
Could we have a support? Support. Sandy, roll call, please.
Councilmember Spolman,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Melama,
No.
Shippers,
Yes.
Mayor Folkins.
Yes. Motion carries 4-1.
Do you guys, do you think you could put a time frame on this?
Just as soon as we could set up a meeting, I'll make myself available, so. In the next week or so? Yes?
Yep.
Okay. The next week or so, we'll get together. Okay. So we are at public comment. At this time, we'll open the floor for public comment.
Harry Elkman, Boone. And being as I can't go in the closed session, ain't that right, Mike?
That's right, Harry.
Well, anyhow, I kind of gave this speech a couple years ago. A budget is nothing but an estimate. And a few years ago, Mr. Stevens was just too happy to approve an 18-page budget, which I was really interested in. That's the reason I can remember that one. And I made this speech once before. Thank you.
Terry Harvey. One thought I had when you discussed the recycling as to how it was affecting the garbage and how that might affect garbage rates. It would seem might be simpler to find out from Ms. Green the amount of weight of paper and what you recycle, paper cans and no glass, or different recyclables. I'm sure she has pretty exact records on what she has sold of that material, which would give you, seemed like that'd be an easier route than trying to have the trash hauler figure out what he didn't haul. The other, Mayor Felkins, when I'd asked about the funding for the jail water and sewer extension to the jail, the second time I thought you started to answer me, but I didn't hear if you said the council had made a decision on that or hadn't. The county had asked the city to fund that.
Actually, what I said was it wasn't part of the public hearing that we were talking about. It wasn't part of that discussion.
Okay, well, that was because how it would affect the water and sewer rate. Like if you took the cost of that and you had it figured into your water and sewer, that would have some effect on your rate.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I happened to bring it up then instead.
Oh, okay.
So I'm bringing it up now instead, but I didn't hear your answer whether the council's decided to fund that or not to fund that.
I can address that.
Thank you. You can what? Address it?
Address it.
That would be great. Okay. We'll talk, he'll talk about that in good of the order.
Thank you.
Seeing no one else, we'll close public comment and move to good of the order. And we'll start with Councilmember Melama.
Second time in a row. Anyway, I guess I got to be ready. First of all, want to mention that we had a great coffee and issues and solutions. Probably one of the best ones that I've had in probably 4 years. It was very spirited and a lot got accomplished. People, Anthony, our fire marshal, showed up and did a wonderful job of answering questions, and I encourage everybody to show up tomorrow at 5:30 here and get some of your answers or your questions answered. Excuse me. And the other thing is, on May 12th, CAMA and the Career Technical Center will do a career expo. And we've done this. This is going on the 3rd year. We also did the reverse job shadowing at the junior high in March. Our CAMA group did, and we've done that for years. We didn't do it for several years, and Counselor Bush contacted us, and we put our right-hand person, Tim Payne, on that job. But anyway, I encourage the employers out there to get in contact with the Career Tech Center, or they get in contact with me, and we will have another great career expo coming up. That's it.
Councilmember Shippers.
Nothing, just it was nice that the Youth Council was highlighted tonight. Oh, I do want to say thanks to Owen for the budget and the discussion and conversation and the stress that you are continuously put under time and again. And I also like to thank Harry for his comments. That's all.
Okay. Councilmember Stevens.
Thanks. Well, first, it's hard to, in reference to Councilmember Shippers, every amendment has different things and how many pages. It's the substance. And if anybody could say that I haven't been speaking of this, and if all of us agreeing last year to the identical thing, and I'd encourage you to go back and watch that's the nice thing about these meetings being on video and being to the public, but you can go back and watch, and I address the same thing, and we are all in agreement. So I just want to make that point. Additionally, I did tonight, it's funny, we just talked about the capital improvement budget and how it changes. And since we did our capital improvement budget, I've had a couple different times that it's been brought up by the public, and then matter of fact, one member that serves on a volunteer committee is possibly looking at not serving on it because their hearing issue. And I think, and again, I don't know the solutions to it and saying that I'm saying tonight, but I really think that we should consider for our meetings, I know that other church groups and such and other governmental units will have some sort of hearing impaired headphones or such for those that are here. That I had a gentleman say, I love to go to those meetings, but I can't ever hear anything. And I know that sometimes is an issue when someone may come up, because even with the microphones, they can't hear it. But I'd like to see us possibly investigate what costs it would be to have that here available. And then additionally, not just for those that may have a handicap, but those that are hard, is we have a great handicap accessible door to get into the city hall, but this door to come in is a big effort. Not just for those that are handicapped, but I have actually, we've all done that, where for somebody, a senior citizen, to open that door, I'm surprised we haven't had any injuries. But I would like to see if we could possibly investigate also seeing if we can make that more accessible, and if there would be a possible way to have a button as well, like we do on the outside, just for future reference. And then lastly, Mr. Adams, I'm gathering that this is probably your last council meeting?
One more.
It is?
One more.
Well, then I'll just hold off until then on that one. I wasn't sure by what it was saying if you were going to be or not, but I'll just hold off to do a little thank you to you then. That's it.
Wonderful. Thank you. Council members.
Thanks for your comments about the accessibility issues. It's probably a good thing for us to take a look at. Regularly, Kitty, can't reach the microphone, and we might want to reconsider the whole thing to make a lot of things more accessible for a lot of different people. The only thing I have is MSU Extension has a history of providing unbiased resources for people to understand ballot proposals better. And the one on the May ballot for the proposed increase in sales tax for the roads has recently come out. And so I know that everybody's probably read a lot already about Proposal 1. This provides you with the ballot language as well as some of the salient points in it and some supporting arguments as well as opposing arguments. And so I brought a copy for everybody and a couple extra copies if anyone is interested.
Thank you.
Awesome. Is that also available online?
It is available online. Yeah, you could do a Google search and find it. It's available in a PDF document if you scroll all the way down to the bottom of that page. It's on the MSU Extension website.
Okay. All set?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Marcus?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. I have a couple of things I wanted to mention. One, I'll just simply address the comments Mr. Harvey had inquired with City Council earlier tonight about the county's proposed jail project and the provision of utility services. Staff was invited to participate in a variety of, I shouldn't say variety, in a few meetings that the county put on with their engineer and architect consultants and members of their organization as they talked about the project. It was communicated to that group that not unlike with any other development project that might happen in the city, that the costs of bringing infrastructure to serve that facility or development would be the responsibility of the developer. And in this case, the developer is the county, and therefore the costs of extending the infrastructure to then connect into the city's infrastructure that already exists would be the responsibility of the county. At this point, we haven't received any additional feedback from the county on any other form of cost sharing for that. The other comment I wanted to make, and thank you, Councilmember Swollen, for commenting about the Proposal 1 ballot initiative that's coming out. There's a website called SafeRoadsYes.com. It's also out there. It's markets heavily towards talking about all of the positives that the proposal would bring should it be approved. The estimate is that Cadillac would receive a little over $500,000 dedicated for road improvements. In addition, the constitutional revenue sharing funds that could be used on all other operations would also increase by approximately $99,000 should that initiative be approved on May 4th. Excuse me, on May 5th. Speaking of May 4th, just as a friendly reminder, that council meeting when the city's annual schedule was set was not rescheduled, but it was rescheduled earlier this year, and there is no council meeting on May 4th. Wanted to mention the Parks Cleanup Day is being set for May 16th. There will be the ability of signing up to volunteer for a variety of locations available at the front counter. We'll have a sign-up sheet accordingly. I also wanted to mention that the Arbor Day celebration is going to be here on Friday, April 24th at 2 o'clock. And I believe that concludes my comments.
Thank you. I would just like to extend a great big thank you to the staff. It's been a long evening, and your efforts don't go unnoticed. And so I wanted to say thank you for all the work that you've done on the budget and everything else that's been going on as of late. We do appreciate that work. In the last week or so, I did have the opportunity today to speak with the Cadillac Women's Club. What a great group of ladies. So we had a great conversation, and there's a lot of good volunteers there that we need to tap into. They're very much interested in getting involved in different things within the city. So they're looking for things to participate in. So we need to tap into them. Last week, Mike Coy and Sherry Spolman and I attended the Cadillac Area Visitors Bureau annual dinner where they provided awards to their volunteers of the year, and they also unveiled their new promotional videos, Pure Michigan videos for the city of Cadillac, and they're quite amazing. And they did it from a perspective of a restaurant, they did it from the perspective of the hotels, and then they did it from the perspective of the trails and the ski trails and the hiking trails. And one of the things that Joy Vendry, the director, shared is that the gentlemen that they have working for them who have made all of this video footage, they have more video footage of the Cadillac area at the Visitors Bureau, and they have opened up the vault, if you will, and have offered to allow any of us to use that footage. So if you need footage for something, they've done just an incredible job, and I think are making a great big difference here in Cadillac. And that's all I have this evening, other than to wish you well, and we'll see you in 4 weeks.
I just wanted to mention, there was a quick sidebar the city attorney and I had. There is not a time-sensitive nature to the proposed closed session this evening. We would definitely need to host the conversation at our next meeting and would recommend tabling it until such time.
I think that would be fabulous.
Council wants to do.
Yeah. It's been a long night.
Very happy.
So with that, we'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you all.
Thanks.